Chapter 213. Yenjika looked straight ahead, not daring to turn her head to look at Lu Cheng. She randomly picked a jewelry store and rushed in, pretending to admire the jewelry, but her heart was beating fast. I can't let him find out my purpose. That's so embarrassing. Luckily I'm smart enough not to let him hold my hand before I suggested it. Otherwise, I'd be exposed. Wait, how should I hint to him? Lu Cheng followed Yenjika's gaze and looked at the rings in the glass counter. His heart was also beating fast, but it was because he was scared. All the diamond rings here cost more than 100,000, 70,000, 80,000, 50,000 or 60,000. The cheapest one cost more than 10,000. Compared with them, my private savings are so shabby. Lu Cheng's hidden pride of earning more than 30,000 in half a year disappeared. He felt a little inferior, but more of his desire and drive. While he was still young, he still had the ability to work hard. He must succeed. And in the field of martial arts, according to his master, Dan's stage was the beginning of the martial arts world. Yenjika didn't know what she was looking at. It took her dozens of seconds to come to her senses. She glanced at the jewelry inside, walked a few steps calmly, and switched to the platinum ring counter. She started to choose carefully. Seeing the prices here, Lu Cheng felt like he was back in the world again. Following the girl's gaze, he pointed at a simple classic ring and asked, "Do you want to try it?" Huh? So proactive? Yenjika was stunned and pretended to be normal. Okay. She and Lu Cheng both had good temperament. The shop assistant put on the gloves and asked with a smile, "Miss, what's your ring size?" "I haven't bought one before. Please measure it for me." Yenjika answered frankly and didn't feel embarrassed that she hadn't bought one before. Which kid would buy a ring for no reason? Okay. The shop assistant turned around to look for the utensils. For Lu Cheng, this was the highlight. His eyes were shining and his ears moved slightly. Yenjika looked at him and felt that Cheng was a little strange. The middle finger is size 11. This ring is just right. The shop assistant looked at the data on the girl's left hand and said, "What about the ring finger?" Lu Cheng couldn't help but interrupt. Yenjika's heart skipped a beat as she vaguely sensed her boyfriend's eagerness. She thought for a moment and connected the dots between the broadcasting bonus, the sudden shopping invitation, and the active suggestion of trying on the clothes. She came to an obvious conclusion. Does Orange want to give me a ring? The corners of her mouth curled up little by little. She couldn't hide her smile no matter how hard she tried. Her ink-black eyes flickered with a bright light. The phoenix does not have a pair of wings, but our hearts are as one. This poem appeared in her mind, and her heart felt warm and sweet. Ring finger 9. The shop assistant finished the measurement and took out the ring Lu Cheng had mentioned before. She put it on Yenjika's middle finger and complimented her with a smile. "It fits you perfectly. It's beautiful. Let's take a look at the others." Yenjika took the initiative to speak before Lu Cheng could think of an excuse. She took off the ring and deliberately looked at her phone. Holding back her laughter, she said seriously, "Cheng, I have something to ask you." "What is it?" Lu Cheng allowed himself to be pulled out of the jewelry store by the girl and stopped at a corner. He was confused. Yenjika bit her pearly white teeth and said with a faint smile, "Do you want to give me a ring?" "Ah." Lu Cheng was stunned by the slap. Was I so obvious? Where's the promised surprise? The girl's pretty face became serious. "Don't lie to me." Lu Cheng blushed and had to confess, "Yes, I was thinking about giving you a ring since I gave you the prize money for the preliminaries. We have been officially dating for almost 100 days. When a child reaches 100 years old, they will celebrate and hope to live a long life. Our relationship is like that of a newborn child. We also need a good sign on the 100th day. We will live a long life, grow old together, and grow old together." These were the words he had prepared to say when he gave her the ring. He had expected that once the surprise was created, the atmosphere would become suitable enough, and it would be quite touching and sincere. But now that he had not done anything, he suddenly had to say it. It was really awkward no matter how he said it. His feeling was right. When the atmosphere was not right, the more Yenjika listened, the more she wanted to laugh. What is this? What a strange metaphor Cheng is using. Her sense of humor was touched. She covered her mouth with one hand and pressed her belly with the other, shaking with laughter. I will remember Cheng's confession. I will remember it for the rest of my life and be happy for the rest of my life. What do you mean by the beginning of a relationship is like that of a newborn child? Do you want to hold a 100th birthday banquet? Lu Qing took a breath and helplessly looked at his girlfriend, who was less amused. It was a success to make her laugh. Yenjika laughed for a while and gradually calmed down. She recalled Lu Cheng's words just now. She didn't know why, but she felt a little touched. Her cheeks became pinker and redder because of her laughter. She looked at Lu Qing with bright eyes and snorted, "Since you want to give it to me so sincerely, I will reluctantly accept it. But rings are in pairs. If I have one, you don't. What kind of boyfriend and girlfriend are we?" As she spoke, she couldn't help but look to the side, not daring to look at Lu Qing. Lu Qing instantly forgot his embarrassment and nodded hard. "Okay. Then I will buy a pair of rings, one for you and one for me." "No, your ring is meaningful only if I give it to you." Yenjika guided him step by step and finally laid the prelude to her words. "Well, it's easy to lift something heavy, without a hint of smoke or fire." "That's true." Lu Qing happily held her hand. "Then let's go and choose a pair of rings." Speaking of this, he suddenly felt that the development of this matter seemed to have been arranged. Who proposed to look at jewelry just now? It seems that I may have been tricked again. He held back his inexplicable smile and warmth and asked tentatively, "Ku, did you plan to take me to choose a ring from the beginning?" "What did you say?" "I don't understand." Yenjika's pretty face suddenly turned red. She turned her head to the side and answered firmly. She wanted to say no directly, but she didn't want to lie to Lu Qing. Why did Qing suddenly become so smart? Lu Qing stopped while he was ahead. Like a weasel who had stolen a chick, he pulled Yenjika back to the jewelry store with a smile. This time, they were looking at platinum rings. After some selection, Coach Yen made the final decision. They bought a pair of simple and classic rings. There were only 2 spiral lines on the rings that converged at the front, setting off the polished water droplets. Because of the different sizes, there were no fancy inlaid diamonds. The women's ring was cheaper, more than 1,100 yuan. After paying with his credit card, Lu Qing carried the bags and looked around, trying to find a quiet place where he could put the ring on Yenjika's finger. As for which finger to put the ring on, he had already checked. The middle finger of the left hand. Yenjika looked at him with a smile and pretended to be careless. "There is a cafe on the 4th floor, really?" Lu Qing asked subconsciously. Then he stopped doubting and sighed with emotion. "You are so observant, I should have been enjoying the feeling of shopping with her, pain and happiness." Yenjika proudly raised her head. "Of course, I am a famous detective." 4th floor, Yuanmu Coffee. They found a booth in a corner where there was no one around. This time, Lu Qing deliberately sat opposite Yenjika, opened the box of the women's ring, and solemnly picked up her left hand. Yenjika lightly bit her lips, blushed, with dimples on her cheeks. Her eyes were a little evasive, but she still firmly watched Lu Cheng's movements, watching him carefully put the ring on her middle finger. In an instant, she felt that the atmosphere around them had become very solemn and serious, not like a couple playing house. While slowly pushing the ring down, Lu Qing half-jokingly said from the bottom of his heart, "I'm sorry. Put on this ring, and you are my wife." When he said the word wife, he had a heavy feeling that this would be the most sacred responsibility in his life. "This ring is very ordinary, but I will give better and better ones in the future." Engagement rings, wedding rings, anniversary rings. Yenjika burst into laughter. She wanted to scold him for his wishful thinking, but when she opened her mouth, she didn't say anything. She looked at Lu Qing drunkenly as he completed the ceremony. Then, she opened the box of the men's ring, picked up the ring, and took Lu Cheng's left hand over. Her body slightly trembled as she helped him put it on his middle finger. Her eyes looked at the two shining rings, and she said shyly and brightly, "Put on this ring, and you are my Cheng." Her voice was weak at first, but gradually it became smooth, and she got used to it. She became bold and firm. Hearing this, Lu Cheng's heart surged with excitement and satisfaction. He wanted to hold his beloved girl in his arms and share his passion and feelings with her. But the cafe was not private enough, and there were many customers coming in and out. He could only control his mood and sit beside Yenjika, letting her lean on his chest, and stroking her smooth black hair. Yenjika quietly leaned on Lu Qing, listening to his warm heartbeat, feeling his overflowing love, and enjoying his silent gentleness. After a long time, she suddenly burst into laughter and said to herself, "I thought of a word." "What?" Lu Qing asked with a smile. His voice was very soft because he didn't want to break the peaceful joy. Yenjika reached out to hold his arm and said with a smile, "Guess." Lu Qing racked his brain and thought about his own feelings. He said with uncertainty, "Privately pledged to be married?" "Yes." Yenjika confirmed with a blush on her cheeks. They had a tacit understanding. Looking at her shy face, Lu Qing couldn't help but want to tease her. "Ku, we have exchanged rings. Shouldn't we change the way we address each other? What should I call you?" Yenjika asked innocently and blankly. "Husband, wife, or something?" Lu Qing said with a cheeky smile. Yenjika suddenly felt shy and annoyed. She reached out to punch his chest. "You wish." After enjoying the endless time spent together in the cafe and happily eating a local dish recommended by Kai Zongming, the two of them held hands and walked through the old campus. They took the last school bus and returned to the new campus that had yet to quiet down in the night. When she got off the bus, Yenjika suddenly took a deep breath. "What's wrong?" Lu Qing was sensitive and focused on the girl. How could he not notice the abnormality? Yenjika pursed her lips and turned her head. She answered shyly, "My legs are a little sore. After practicing martial arts for the whole morning and shopping for the whole afternoon, it was inevitable that her legs and feet were sore." Lu Qing immediately said, "Do you want to find a place to sit and let me give you a massage?" She wasn't tired at all. Even her tired spirit was completely uplifted by the exchange of rings. Yenjika rolled her eyes at him and said with anger and amusement, "I'm wearing a dress, idiot." No matter what position she used to massage the legs and feet, it would be very embarrassing. Lu Qing patted his head and secretly sighed that he was not meticulous enough in some details. So he suggested, "Then let's find a chair to sit and rest for a while." Because it was the last school bus, the surroundings became quite quiet as the bus left. Although there were still people coming and going, there weren't many of them. Yenjika nodded and followed Lu Qing to a bench. She took out a tissue from her bag and asked Lu Qing to wipe the back of the bench. After sitting down, she bent down and rubbed her calves. Her eyes twinkled and she smiled with curiosity and shyness. "Qing, I thought you would suggest a walk by the lake." When they exchanged rings in the afternoon, Qing was so excited and happy. She always felt that he was suppressing his passion and wanted to release it. Who knew he would hold it back? Since they communicated on the 1st of May, Lu Qing didn't kiss her passionately every time they walked. However, the environment by the lake was so good, the atmosphere was so suitable, and they were in the stage of love. So for Yenjika, on this special day when they exchanged rings, a walk by the lake was like a request for intimacy. Lu Qing put his arm around the girl's shoulder and pulled her closer to him. He tilted his head and stared into her eyes. He smiled and said seriously, "If I were to suggest going to the lake now, I would feel that the exchange of rings was just to trick you into being intimate with me. But to me, it's actually a very solemn and sacred thing. It's my promise and expectation. It's not an excuse to trick you into being intimate with me. I want to prove to you that you are the most important person in my heart. I only want to be intimate with you because I like you. That's why I'm so excited and thirsty, and not the other way around. I want to prove to you that I'm a man of my words and can control myself." This was an impulse blurting out, but also a burst of accumulated thoughts in his heart. Yenjika's beautiful black eyes were covered with a thin layer of mist. She bit her pink lips with her white teeth and scolded him with joy and tenderness. "You're getting more and more mushy. You can even say such romantic words that are close to the dialogue of a TV series." "But why do I like it a little, more than a little?" Lu Qing could hear the girl's true tone. He smiled and said, "Anyway, I don't want our special day to be mixed with desire." Of course, there was passion and impulse in the afternoon, but he restrained himself. Speaking of this, he added with a smile, "In fact, I also like our relationship like this." "I like it too." Yenjika leaned her face on Lu Cheng's shoulder with a peaceful and beautiful smile. After a short snuggle that didn't need to be spoken, she kept whispering, half teasing, half confused. What if I invite you to take a walk by the lake tomorrow night?" Lu Cheng's heartbeat suddenly sped up. He also heard the girl's rapid heartbeat from their clasped palms. His mouth was dry and full of expectation. "Then I'll definitely be happy." Yenjika's lips parted and she took 2 quick breaths to calm down the heat on her cheeks. She smiled and said, "I'm just saying if. I just wanted to tease Cheng. But why do I feel like I'm possessed by a ghost after saying it? But Cheng's reaction is really funny." Lu Qing shook his head with a smile. He rubbed the girl's hair and deliberately said fiercely, "Be careful or I'll be beastly." "I believe you." Yenjika sat up straight and smiled sweetly. Her eyes were pure and innocent. After that, she jumped up with her hands behind her back and said, "Let's go back to the dormitory. Today is really a happy day." In the shadow of the 3rd dormitory, Lu Qing held the girl's hands and was reluctant to part with her. "See you tomorrow." Yenjika resisted the urge to stick to him and said cheerfully. Lu Qing looked at the ring on her left hand and then at his own ring. Seeing that they were a pair, he suddenly had an impulse and pulled the girl back and hugged her tightly. "This is my wife, what's wrong?" Yenjika felt Lu Cheng's excitement. She blinked and asked in confusion. Lu Qing said half jokingly and half sincerely, "I just saw the pair of rings on our hands and suddenly wanted to call you my wife." When he said this, he suddenly felt a little shy. "But I don't think I'm qualified enough to accept this title. I don't have enough ability to make your life better, so I held back." "You're so mushy." Yenjika hit him lightly. After dozens of seconds of silence, she changed her mind and held back her laughter. She left Lu Cheng's arms and said like a water lotus, How about I call you that?" "Really?" Lu Cheng was pleasantly surprised. My words just now moved Ku so much. So much so that she could muster up the courage to call me that. "Really?" Yenjika said with a serious expression. Okay. Lu Qing nodded hard and answered without pausing for fear that the girl would change her mind. Yenjika took 2 steps towards the door of the dormitory, then turned around and looked at Lu Qing shyly. She opened her pink lips and said in a low voice, "Wife." Ha ha ha. After that, she left Lu Qing in a daze and ran into the dormitory with a series of cheerful laughter. Her long hair fluttered in the wind. She laughed so hard that tears almost came out. Today is really a happy day. Wife. I've been tricked again. Lu Qing wanted to be angry, but he couldn't stop smiling. He went back to the dormitory with all the bags. He looked through the bills and found that Yenjika had bought 7,000 or 8,000 yuan worth of shoes, clothes, and pants for herself, not including the rings. She didn't buy a lot, but the price was relatively high. And Ku seemed to think that these clothes and pants were not good enough. Lu Cheng was not a fool. He could feel that Yenjika didn't care about her own money and wasn't sensitive about it. In other words, she didn't worry about money. Thinking about the aura of Empress Dowager and the martial arts of her grandfather, many things could be understood without saying. Putting down the bags, Lu Qing replied to Yenjika's message and sighed softly. If he wanted to marry this wife and not let her be wronged, he had to work harder. If it was in the past, he would definitely feel inferior. But now, after so many hardships, he felt that he had the confidence to fight for it. As long as they could get along well, everything else would not be a problem. If he couldn't be a rich second generation, then he would be a rich first generation. The next morning, by the Weishui Lake, Lu Cheng, who was brimming with fighting spirit, restrained his temper and carried out his daily training until he finished most of his homework. Then he began to think about how to use the Jin Dan to complete the opposition and unification of the two visualization methods. He concealed his spirit and qi, suppressed the distracting thoughts, and lowered his spirit little by little towards the Jin Dan in his lower abdomen. Before this, he had already thought about how ice and fire were opposed and unified. He was an excellent student who had gone through junior high and senior high school physics education. In the 2 semesters compulsory courses, there were also college physics and university physics, so he had long developed this kind of thinking pattern and was used to using it to analyze things in nature. Therefore, from a similar point of view, ice and fire were only different on the surface. In fact, they were different states of matter under different temperatures, different pressures, and different environments. Thinking about it to the limit, when it reached ultra-low temperature or ultra-high temperature, ice and fire could be replaced by condensed state and plasma state. The same matter with different microstructures, the same thing with different sides, unified and opposed. Lu Cheng had not studied the knowledge of these two aspects in depth, so he could barely grasp this point. Slowly immersing his spirit, he enlarged the scene inside the Jin Dan in his field of vision, bit by bit. The flames were like the sun, equivalent to stars, emitting light and heat in the extremely low temperature and dark universe, illuminating the eternal loneliness of life. Ice crystals surrounded them. They were unusually cold and merciless. They were like planets and moons. However, from the outside, they reflected light and shone resplendently like stars in the night sky. In other words, they were fixed stars. This isn't right. Lu Cheng felt that this was against his understanding and observation of astronomical phenomena. He boldly made a change and no longer regarded the ice crystals as stars or planets. Instead, he regarded them as a symbol of the cold and dark universe. They represented the vast starry sky, not specific stars. His perception changed, and what he saw shook. The starry sky and nebula of the Jin Dan suddenly enlarged to the extreme. In the dark and cold boundless void, dust and matter kept accumulating and pulling each other. Finally, it reached the limit of gravity, violently collapsing and changing, igniting flames and giving birth to stars. Lu Cheng's initial understanding of the unity of ice and fire was under the microscopic structure, but this was on an astronomical scale. Extremely small and extremely large were also opposites and unified. And this was different from the image of Longhu Immortal. As soon as the image appeared, Lu Cheng's spirit was quickly drained. He had to withdraw and stop the visualization. He always felt that Longhu Immortal had made a mistake when dealing with the starry sky image of the Jin Dan, treating the flames as the sun and the ice crystals as stars. His success in the end seemed to be a bit of a fluke. For a moment, he suddenly understood why Peng Liyun took the college entrance examination, why he went to college, and why he chose the physics department of Shanghai University. In ancient times, martial artists did not have tools, nor did they have practical theories. They could only rely on themselves to understand nature, accumulating knowledge bit by bit and passing it down from generation to generation. But in today's society, people had a more realistic understanding of matter and the universe. It was a waste not to use them for martial arts. Gieserscher stood aside with relaxed mind and body. He found that his disciple was not practicing severe warning, but was inexplicably in a daze, so he asked casually, "What are you doing?" Lu Cheng was too embarrassed to say his thoughts before because he was afraid of being laughed at by his master. Now that he was asked, he honestly said, "Master, I was thinking that since Longhu Immortal's ice and fire can be balanced and unified, why can't I mix the two visualization methods of Thunder Roar Zen and Frost Force together?" Gieserscher was stunned at first, then he convulsed with laughter. "Not bad, not bad. You have more ideas than I did when I was young. Give it a try, you can't go wrong." Only by giving it a try could one know what was whimsical, what was right, what was not enough, and what was a real idea that could be implemented. Lu Qing blushed and felt a little embarrassed, but he also received his master's encouragement, and began to calm down and think about the similarities between Thundercloud and Ice Seal. Chapter 214. On Sunday morning, beside Weishui Lake, Lu Qing stood with his legs apart and his eyes closed. His body seemed to be moving up and down along with the water. The wind around him was very light, mixed with the coolness and dampness of the rainstorm in the middle of the night. Everything seemed so peaceful and quiet. At this moment, Lu Qing put his left foot inward, bounced his back, and punched out his right fist like a club. Bang! He punched the air, and the quiet winds suddenly exploded and whimpered, rippling out in circles. Compared to before, they were stained with a bone-piercing chill, condensing a sparkling light, covering the wet ground within a 1-meter radius with a thin layer of silver frost. The further away it was, the less traces there were. This dreamy scene that violated the season paused for 3 seconds before disappearing. Lu Qing opened his eyes and saw it, but he couldn't believe it. Was this the power of his mutated version of severe warning? Although he could only punch once without deep sleep, but even an 8th pin Dan stage fighter couldn't take a punch, right? After nearly a week of hard work, continuous improvement, and difficult copying, he finally completed the fusion of Thundercloud and Ice Seal, which could be considered as a new visualization method of falling sun, ice and thunder. And the changes of the corresponding muscles, fascia, and internal organs of his body had also been tempered into the beginner's door. In other words, his simplified version of severe warning of physical invulnerability was basically mastered, but the biggest problem was that he wasn't skilled enough and flexible enough. It's 2 beats slower than Frost Force, but as long as I can seize the opportunity to hit Zhou Jingquan, things will be simple. Lu Qing thought happily. Although severe warning didn't need to connect 2 visualization methods and was simplified into a martial art with only 1 visualization diagram, it was still a low-level version of physical invulnerability. After all, he had just learned it and still needed some time to prepare. He could only use it through excellent improvisation and anticipated traps to create opportunities to use it. This would be something out of Zhou Jingxuan's expectation, so he definitely wouldn't be prepared. As for the specific power of severe warning, Lu Qing couldn't accurately judge because he hadn't experienced it in actual combat. Thinking of the initial mastery of the unique skill, the competition in the afternoon, and the fierce battle with an 8th pin expert, he was excited and expectant. He took a breath and eagerly said to Geyser beside him, "Master, I'm going for a run." After an hour of deep sleep in the afternoon, everything would be ready. All that was left was to begin. Go ahead. Geyser waved his hand impatiently. After Lu Qing had left in high spirits, he sighed with a smile and shook his head. So young, at around 2:00 in the afternoon, Yenjika packed up her things and changed into a white martial arts suit with black edges. She was a little nervous and excited at the same time. At this moment, Li Liantong turned off the computer and said in a clear and urgent voice, "Ku, wait for me. Let's go together." "You're going there so early?" Yenjika knew that her roommate was going to watch the competition and cheer for the martial arts club, but she didn't expect that she would leave so early. Li Liantong had specially changed into a short-sleeved t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers. She pointed at herself and said with a smile, "I feel that I have fallen in love with the atmosphere of the martial arts competition. Don't you think this outfit suits you? The feeling of everyone working together for one thing, the atmosphere where they could vent to their heart's content without caring about the gazes of others, and the passion of shouting and singing for victory filled him with nostalgia and love. Over there, she could do something different from the usual Li Liantong. It's okay. In fact, wearing the same martial arts suit makes me feel more involved." Yenjika answered the question seriously first, and then looked at her roommate from head to toe. She teased, "Dirty Tong, are you bewitched? I remember that you didn't like martial arts very much in the beginning. Isn't your love for filth and corruption? People change." Li Liantong said seriously, "I'm such a quiet and sunny girl, so I need a little masculine hobby to balance, neutralize it." Zhong Yenru had turned her head when they were talking. At this moment, she snorted and said, "Dirty Tong, you're becoming more and more suspicious. What do you mean by suspicious? Look, I've already prepared a small trumpet and an inflatable hammer. Li Liantong pulled out her weapons. Yenjika pursed her lips and smiled, posing like a famous detective. You're even more suspicious. That's right, that's right. Dirty Tong, you weren't so enthusiastic about the martial arts competition before. Shi Xiangyang leaned over the bed and smiled ambiguously. Did you fall in love with a guy who practices martial arts? Li Liantong looked at her three roommates with an aggrieved expression. Am I such a person in your eyes? Yes. Yenjika, Zong Yenru, and Shi Xiangyang answered in unison. I've really fallen in love with martial arts competitions. Haven't I been watching your preliminaries all this time? I was moved by Lin Ke and your Chang's performance, and attracted by the atmosphere during the competition. Believe me, I've almost become a die-hard fan of your martial arts club. Li Liantong said her thoughts in a joking tone. Yenjika stopped teasing her and said with a faint smile, welcome. It felt good to have someone supporting her, especially a familiar roommate. At this moment, Li Liantong's eyes turned, and she forgot about her seriousness. She smiled and said, you're in a favorable position and you've taken Qing away. We're all good roommates, so we won't fight among ourselves. So, does Lin Ke have a girlfriend? Wow. I knew you were up to no good. Zong Yenru laughed out loud. Shi Xiangyang also rubbed her cheeks and said, I was saying that the dirty Tong just now was so unfamiliar. This is your real face. Favorable position. It always feels weird when it comes out of dirty Tong's mouth. Fortunately, they don't know that Lin Ke is my brother. Yenjika thought and smiled. Dirty Tong, don't think about it. Lin Ke's character is not suitable for ordinary people. Speaking of this, she suddenly sighed. As a sister, who wouldn't want her brother to be happier and happier? But, Li Liantong didn't care. She raised the inflatable hammer and said, do I look like an ordinary person? After joking around, she called out to Zong Yenru and Shi Xiangyang seriously, Ru, Cabbage, let's go together. Let's cheer for the martial arts club. In the female dormitory of the Academy of Arts, Wu Qian finished her makeup and asked her roommates, is anyone going to watch the competition? I still have something to do. I don't want to get out of bed, so I won't watch you guys show off your affection. Two of the girls immediately said that they wouldn't go. They were only interested in watching the martial arts club's competition at the beginning. Another quiet girl wearing large framed glasses hurriedly packed her things and said, Wu Qian, I want to go. Yanxi, you want to go? Wu Qian had expected the answer. She felt that the most likely person to not go today was her roommate, Fan Yanxi, who was a quiet artist. Fan Yanxi nodded seriously and said, yeah, I like watching the martial arts club's competition. Wu Qian looked at her in confusion and didn't ask more. She smiled slightly and said, then hurry up, I'll wait for you. Okay. Fan Yanxi nodded heavily. She was going to cheer for the martial arts club today. Yan Shaoling was lying on the bed as usual. She quickly opened the live video website. At the same time, she was also looking at the information she collected and provided by the unparalleled Dragon King. Every time she flooded the forum, she would make fun of herself and say that it was okay if she didn't understand and that she just had to be a love-struck fool. But in fact, she was a very serious and hard-working girl. She had been cramming martial arts knowledge to catch up with her friends. She couldn't always make fun of herself to maintain her position as a moderator. She had to cheer for Lu Cheng and the Songqing University Martial Arts Club later. In the Songqing University Martial Arts Club, Xu Rui sat in the reporter's seat. She looked at the interview prompts on her phone notebook and sighed in distress. She felt a headache when she thought of interviewing Lin Ke again today. Her phone screen lit up and showed a few lines of words. Lin Ke, martial arts fanatic. If he wins, he can talk and direct the questions to the details of the competition. If he loses, then, Xu Rui's thoughts were wandering. Suddenly, she felt the noisy stands become quiet. Instinctively, she looked at the gate and saw Zhou Jingquan walking in first. He was wearing a black traditional Chinese costume with red patterns. His temperament was gentle and his manners were calm. The few spectators were stunned. Behind Zhou Jingquan, Hou Yu, Zhui Yanjun, Li Xingnan, and the others walked in one after another. On the 19th of May, 2:46 p.m., the Donglin battle squad arrived. The last match of the top 8 in Songqing Division. Chapter 2:15. Under everyone's gaze, the Donglin squad calmly crossed the field and walked to the locker room of the away team. When they passed by the reporters, Zhou Jingquan glanced at Xu Rui and nodded with a smile. "Hello, Reporter Xu." During the group matches, the Donglin battle team often visited Songqing. He had seen this reporter who left a deep impression on him a few times. Xu Rui remembered the rule of not interviewing fighters before the competition. She stood up and said, "Hello, good luck." After a short greeting, Zhou Jingquan didn't look sideways. He straightened his back and walked forward without swaying. When they were far away from the reporters, Hou Yu excitedly approached his senior brother and asked in a low voice, "Senior brother Zhou, why don't you talk to Reporter Xu for a while?" As an 18-year-old teenager who couldn't stay still, he loved to gossip about things other than martial arts, games, and girls. Xu Rui, whom he had met several times, and Yan Zhika, whom he had watched in the competition videos, were often mentioned in his discussions with his senior brothers and junior brothers. Now that he saw them in person, he couldn't help but tease them. Interviews before the competition will affect one's mood. Zhou Jingquan answered calmly. "That's true." Hou Yu nodded and then winked. "Senior brother Zhou, do you want to ask for her phone number or QQ or WeChat later?" Zhou Jingquan chuckled. "Not at all. Asking for a girl's contact information will ruin my image. Little monkey, can't you concentrate on the competition?" Li Xingnan, who had sharp ears, scolded Hou Yu at this time. Hou Yu quietly stuck out his tongue and answered with a cheeky smile, "Got it. I'm very focused during the competition." "It hasn't started yet, right?" In the reporters' seats, Xu Rui watched their backs disappear at the locker room door. She shook her head and sneered, "Show off, I've seen all kinds of men." When Lu Cheng, Yan Zhika, and the others arrived at the martial arts arena, there were not many spectators. But the students they met on the way recognized him as soon as they saw his clothes and temperament. Even if they didn't recognize him, they would know that he was Lu Cheng, the leading member of the martial arts club, after seeing Yan Zhika beside him. "Come on, our entire dormitory is here to cheer for you guys." A cheerful boy clenched his fist and waved. "Lu Cheng, you can do it." Although a girl was so shy that her voice was trembling, she still mustered up the courage to shout out. Lu Cheng didn't expect to receive such a warm reception. For a moment, he didn't know how to react. He could only smile, nod, and wave with a stiff expression. Yan Zhika curled her lips and held back her laughter. She pretended that she didn't know this guy and walked forward calmly. When they were almost at the door of the changing room, she laughed softly and said, "Does it feel good to be a star?" Lu Cheng rubbed his stiff cheek muscles and said with a wry smile, "I finally understand a word, flattered." This was the support of the students. This was both motivation and pressure. Filled with emotions, he pushed open the door of the locker room and let Yan Zhika enter first, followed by him. Clang! The bustling atmosphere was isolated from the outside world. At 3:00 sharp, all the participants of the preliminaries had arrived. Geezer drank a mouthful of wine and wiped his mouth. He looked around and said with a smile, "Little Yen, this time you'll be the one to say the words." "Me again?" Yan Zhika was both angry and amused. "Who was the coach?" Smack the table. Hearing their conversation, everyone, including Lu Cheng, couldn't help but laugh out loud. The tension that had been brewing before the match suddenly dissipated a lot. Even Lin Kei showed his emotions at that moment in a small arc that ordinary people couldn't detect. Yan Zhika rolled her eyes at her boyfriend and pursed her lips. Based on Wenxing School's previous behavior and the fact that they won the first round, we can believe that they will adopt a safe strategy. They won't ask for credit, but they won't make any mistakes. Humph, I'll say it. Anyway, I've often discussed this with Qing before. As for the specific in-depth analysis of thinking, she didn't describe it, so as not to confuse everyone. That is to say, they will still let Zhou Jingquan fight second instead of taking the risk of sending an 8th pin Dan stage fighter first or last. If Zhou Jingquan is the first to enter the arena, it's very likely that the situation with Fearless Squad will repeat itself if he encounters Lin Ke and Lu Qing in that order. He will be defeated by Lu Qing, who has insane stamina. If he is the last to enter the arena, he will be worried that we will use Lu Qing as the vanguard. The premise of all this was that they didn't know that Qing could also be tired. And judging from the details of the last match and the feedback afterwards, no one except for herself had realized this. Isn't it the same as when they fight first? Sun Jian raised his hand and asked. Yenjika shook her head like a coach. More or less the same, but the details will be adjusted. I think they will put Hou Yu last. Why? Li Mao and Guo Qing asked in unison. Wenxing School knows that Hou Yu's supernatural ability can't be hidden from us, so they can't let him be a surprise attack. His fighting style and fighting style are very suitable for last. Think about it. If Lu Qing and Lin Ke were in the same order, as long as Zhou Jingquan didn't have a big problem, Lin Ke, who was facing Hou Yu, would definitely consume a lot of energy and show a decrease in strength, even if it wouldn't be as tiring as the last round. Then he would be restrained by the opponent who is good at monkey form. Moreover, his supernatural ability is special. Even if he takes precautions and raises his vigilance, he will still be easily affected when his body functions decline. If we let Lin Ke fight first, no matter if his opponent is Zhuo Yanjun or Li Xingnan, he will consume a lot of energy and reduce the pressure on Zhou Jingquan. At that time, under the full power of the Dan stage, even if he can't defeat Lu Qing, there is a high chance that he will be injured. The fly-fall punch's waterfall is somewhat similar to tremor punch. Lu Qing's physical strength is abnormal, but it doesn't mean he is invincible. Once he is affected, it will be very difficult for him to face Hou Yu, who is jumping around. Sun Jian understood Yan Zhika's meaning and thought it was very reasonable. But another question arose. Since Hou Yu is so suitable for the last match, why didn't the Donglin squad arrange him like this before? First, to use his supernatural ability as a surprise attack. Second, Hou Yu's fighting style is very taxing on his body. We only mentioned Lu Qing and Lin Ke before, but we didn't mention you, Senior Sun Jian. Yan Zhika smiled slightly. When Hou Yu defeats them, he will consume a lot of energy. He may not be able to beat you, and may lose 2-3. So, they fought for victory in the last match, and this match is for stability. After saying that, she glanced around and remembered that she was shy. She blushed slightly and said, I'm done analyzing. The order of the martial arts club's appearance must be arranged by Coach Shi. Next to her, Lu Qing took the opportunity to consider the pros and cons of his appearance first or later. If he appeared first, he would encounter Zhou Jingquan in his best condition. With his experience and strength, he might not find a chance to use severe warning. It could only be said that without the consumption of Hou Yu's supernatural ability, he would definitely perform better than he did in the Donglin squad, and there was hope that he could force out his opponent's continuous outbursts. If he fought later, Zhou Jingquan would be weakened in all aspects after the fierce battle with Lin Ke, and Meng Qi was quite confident that he would be able to create an opportunity to use severe warning. However, the problem was that severe warning was currently a great burden to him. After defeating Zhou Jingquan, he still had to continue fighting Hou Yu. Therefore, unlike when he fought first, he didn't need to consider a way to retreat, didn't need to be overcautious, and didn't need to hold back. He could go all out to fight Zhou Jingquan and find a good opportunity to use severe warning. Comparing the two, it was better for him to appear first. While his thoughts were running wild, Lu Qing didn't make the most beneficial choice for himself because he had considered another problem. This match had to be won by 3-1 to have a chance to make a comeback. In other words, the one who appeared later couldn't lose. If he couldn't afford to lose, he would have to bear the pressure of winning. If he lost, considering Lin Kei's self-esteem and desire to win, and the fact that he could say, sorry, in the last match, it would be a great blow to him and make him full of guilt. Normal people would be upset and feel pain for a while, let alone Lin Kei, who was a bit mentally ill. I can't put pressure on him and aggravate his problem. This was not because he sympathized with Lin Kei, but because he wanted to protect him. It was not only for the sake of Yenjika, but also because they were the two pillars of the martial arts club. After fighting side by side for so many matches, they had long developed a sense of camaraderie with each other. As one of the leading fighters, as a man, this was the time to use his shoulders. I'll bear the pressure. Lu Qing exhaled and said before Gizershur could say anything, Coach, I want to be the second to appear. Everyone's eyes immediately focused on his face. Some were puzzled, some were surprised, some were biting their lips, and some were shaking with ice. This was a rare volunteer. Lin Kei pursed his lips and stepped forward. He looked straight at Gizershur and said, Coach, I want to be the second to appear. Lu Cheng had expected this. While complaining about his brother-in-law's strong self-esteem, he explained calmly, I've been practicing a killer move recently. It's suitable for Zhou Jingxuan's condition to decline. Gizershur laughed. Everyone is very enthusiastic. I know that Lu Cheng has mastered a killer move. He'll be the second to appear. Lin Kei tilted his head, took a deep look at Lu Cheng, and nodded his head ever so slightly. He didn't say anything else and retreated to the corner. The order is Lin Kei, Lu Cheng, and Sun Jian. Let's make the final adjustments quickly. Gizershur said casually. Yenjika was so smart that she had already guessed her boyfriend's thoughts. She pulled him to another corner, showed her dimples, and said in a low voice, Thank you. Do we still need to say thank you between us? Lu Cheng made a joke that could evoke memories. Yenjika rolled her eyes and said with a smile in her eyes, I'm saying it for my brother. Your brother doesn't need to say thank you, unless he doesn't treat me as his teammate. Lu Cheng said seriously, but he felt it was too serious, so he laughed and said, unless he doesn't treat me as his brother-in-law. Yenjika looked at this guy who was getting more and more shameless. She wanted to pinch him, but when she thought of his upcoming match, she held back her restless hand and snorted. Hearing the girl's coquettish anger, Lu Cheng felt happy. He closed his eyes and planned to rest. Looking at his action, Yenjika's eyes moved and her expression became gentle. She leaned close to his ear and said in a low voice, Cheng, you're so nice. This is the right way for a girlfriend to thank her boyfriend. Lu Cheng immediately smiled, but he didn't open his eyes. He just held Yenjika's slender hand and drew strength from it to better adjust his state. This was both pressure and motivation. In the away team locker room, the leader of Wenxing School, Enai Mingfei, looked around at all the disciples and stopped Hou Yu, who was running around in the room. In this match, we need to be steady first. Yu Chuan is the second to fight, so he can attack or retreat. Enai Mingfei said concisely, they must be on guard against your supernatural ability. You're the last to fight, so you have to win. Yanjun, you're the vanguard. No matter if you meet Lin Kei or Lu Cheng, just remember one thing. Don't be afraid and play your normal level. Do you understand? Understood. Hou Yu and Zhui Yanjun answered in unison, while Zhou Jingquan took out his black martial arts suit from his junior brother's backpack and carried it to the bathroom. At 3:27, in the live broadcast room of Songqing TV station, Fang Juexiao suddenly felt refreshed and said to the guest beside him, Ganlu, they're coming out, both sides are coming out. In the background of the broadcast, the sound of small loudspeakers was heard all over the stadium. According to the list and order of appearance they had just received, the first match was clear, Lin Kei versus Shui Yanjun. Chapter 216. In the stands, Li Liantong was still a little reserved and restrained. However, when she saw Lu Cheng, Lin Kei, and the others walking out of the home team's locker room one after another and heard the sound of the loudspeakers around her, the passion hidden in the depths of her heart was ignited. She raised her hands high, waved them back and forth, and shouted rhythmically with the audience nearby, "Songqing University, Songqing University. Songqing University, go for it." Zhong Yanru and Shi Xiangyang saw their roommate's selfless performance and were stunned for a moment. They couldn't believe that this was the dirty Tong they knew. Whether she was quiet on the outside or dirty on the inside, she was very different from her current self. However, when the announcer started to read the names of the main force and substitutes of Songqing University Martial Arts Club, Li Liantong and the other audience members responded in an echo-like manner. They also felt that something was stirring in their hearts, and they were eager to vent something. They wanted to be part of this crazy but intoxicating atmosphere. Unconsciously, they also shouted. Because of their different personalities and habits, they were not as crazy as Li Liantong and still retained some reserve. But they also turned their voices into drops of water in the waves. Lin Ke, Lu Cheng, Wu Qian and Zhang Jingye followed Kai Zhongming and the others and shouted. Fan Yanxi held the loudspeaker and blew to her heart's content. Under her quiet appearance was a red face and passionate eyes. In such a tsunami of shouts, the referee stepped into the arena. He looked at both sides and made the final confirmation. He took a breath and let his voice penetrate the noise without the help of the loudspeaker, resounding in every corner of the stadium. Songqing University Martial Arts Club vs Donglin Squad in the quarterfinals of Songqing Division. Round 1, Lin Ke vs Shui Yanjun. Lin Ke suddenly stood up. He didn't directly walk to the arena. Instead, he walked past Li Mao and Yan Zhika and came in front of Lu Qing, stretching out his right hand. Lu Qing was stunned at first, then he smiled and reached out his hand to Lin Ke for a high five. "Go for it." Lin Ke nodded slightly, turned around, and stepped into the arena. Shui Yanjun was already standing there, as straight as a tree. She closed her eyes and rejoiced that she was still in the world of martial arts and could still step into the arena. The enemy on the other side was not easy to deal with. Last time, when he was exhausted, he had given himself a fright. Now that they had met again, he believed that everyone was certain that he would win. It was just a matter of how much energy he had expended. But I don't think so. I've also trained step by step to become a strong professional 9th pin fighter. There's a gap between me and a Dan stage fighter, but it's not so big that I can't make up for it. Just because there's little hope doesn't mean there's none. This wasn't Shui Yanjun being blindly arrogant. Rather, she believed that when encountering a strong enemy, holding on to the idea of going all out was a better way to accomplish the predetermined goal than having the mentality of seeking stability and attrition. Even if he wanted to settle for the next best thing, there had to be room for retreat. If he didn't use winning as his motivation, how could he take a step back and seek to wear down his opponent? Just as Shui Yanjun was about to sort out her thoughts, the referee raised his right hand and solemnly said, 3 minutes. Shui Yanjun knew that Lin Ke was a taciturn person who wouldn't even fart after being hit with a stick. She didn't want to waste her breath, so she simply closed her eyes and considered her thoughts for the last time. In the live broadcast room of Songqing TV station, Fang Juexiao chuckled. With Lin Ke as the representative, Songqing University Martial Arts Club doesn't seem to have any martial artists who are good at talking. It's hard to interpret the interesting verbal battle in the broadcast. A large part of the reason why he was able to become the host of Songqing TV station's martial arts competition step by step was that he was multi-talented and could even read lips. Gan Lu smiled and shook his head. Don't you see what kind of background they have? If they were good at cursing, they would have been dealt with by the school. They're college students, so their quality is definitely higher. Old Gan, you've been out of the normal society for too long. If you have time, you should go online more often. Nowadays, some college students are better at cursing than you. And I only said they're good at talking, not cursing. Debate is also one of them. Fang Juexiao tried to liven up the atmosphere while Lin Ke and Shui Yanjun were stunned. As for the analysis of the outcome of this match, they had already discussed it before. Their views were quite consistent. Both sides had a chance, and it all depended on how they performed on the spot. While Fang Juexiao and Gan Lu were discussing verbal skills, Kai Zhongming looked at Lin Ke on the stage and felt the enthusiasm around him. Once again, he yearned for it. If I were standing there, I would definitely be as handsome as him. I wouldn't waste these 3 minutes. On the stage, the referee looked at the electronic clock and silently counted a few times. Once again, he raised his right hand and shouted in a clear voice, "Begin." The sound of the announcement still echoed. Suddenly, a series of thunderous sounds came from Lin Kei's body. It was like the buzz of a motorcycle rushing out, or the exhaust of a car before it started. It made Zhui Yanjun suddenly think of a sentence recorded in the secret book of Fly Fall Punch: "The wind is blowing before the storm. The wind is blowing before the storm." This was a sign that Lin Kei's muscles, bones, fascia, and internal organs were accumulating strength. This was a sign that he had broken through the limits of his physique refining. This indicated that he was only 20 or 30 days away from the dance stage. As the sound echoed, Lin Kei suddenly rushed out like a meteor. In an instant, he closed the distance of more than 6 meters between the two. His momentum was fierce, and his power was astonishing. Although Zhui Yanjun had the idea of gambling on the outcome of the match and wanted to attack from the start, she still didn't dare to fight head-on with Lin Kei, whose momentum had climbed to the peak in an instant. However, she also couldn't retreat. In this kind of confrontation, if she dodged, her opponent's momentum would be like a rainbow. He would continuously press forward and put her at a complete disadvantage. If she wanted to turn the situation around, she would have to gamble according to the plan. It would take twice the effort for half the effort. As her thoughts turned, she, who had rich experience in the arena, slid to the left. It looked like she wanted to avoid the frontal attack and attack her opponent from the side. As soon as she moved, Lin Kei's center of gravity swayed. His body strangely changed directions at high speed without any sense of difficulty. Seeing that her opponent's right arm muscles had already swelled, Zhui Yanjun's spine sprung up dramatically. Her back muscles swelled, and she forcibly pulled her body back. She wasn't trying to dodge, but to wear down Lin Kei's momentum. She shifted her center of gravity, and her feet fiercely pushed inward. Her right hand, which had been pressed diagonally to the left side of her waist, pulled out with the sound of breaking bricks. It was as if a sword had rushed out of its box and turned into a waterfall. It illuminated the entire room, and its edge was enough to kill. Black water sword technique, sword drawing breaks water. This move was created by the founder of Wenxing School after comprehending the secret art of the water sect. He traveled to Japan at that time to challenge the masters of the way of the sword. He combined the local sword drawing technique with his own swordsmanship, taking the strengths of both and discarding the weaknesses of both. Zhui Yanjun used a special technique to turn her waist and back. Driving her right arm, she quickly, fiercely chopped her palm blade from the bottom to the top toward Lin Kei's side. It was a bit earth-shattering. "I didn't come here to wear you out, but to win. I will use all my strength and not hold anything back." Lin Kei's body suddenly stopped. He withdrew his momentum and then released it. His left hand clenched into a fist and exploded the air with the force of a hammer. He fiercely hit Zhui Yanjun's long sword within a very small range. Bam! Lin Kei's left arm involuntarily bounced away from the force of sword drawing breaks water. Zhui Yanjun's body swayed and her right hand followed. At that moment, she stepped back, not to dissipate the force, but to borrow it. With a crack, she fiercely pounced forward. Straightening her back, she raised her left arm high, splitting Huashan Mountain alone. She knew that Lin Kei's tremor punch was different from Lu Cheng's. It was faster and faster, so she couldn't give him the slightest gap. In the previous exchange, Lin Kei had borrowed a bit of force from the yin-yang twist. Following the rebound of his left arm, he had already turned his body. At that moment, his right hand went up and firmly blocked the chop. Bam! Zhui Yanjun's palm blade had just chopped Lin Kei's arm when her arm muscle strangely swelled and pushed up her martial arts suit. She had completed the long-awaited double force. Using this force, her left palm was like a blade. She was going to cut down and use the yin force to severely injure the muscles, fascia, and blood vessels under Lin Kei's skin. This way, he would need at least a month to recover. Blackwater Sword Technique's killing move, Yin-Yang Double Wave. The chop was Yang, and the cut was Yin. The Yang force injured the bones, and the Yin force attacked the flesh. At this critical moment, Lin Kei's face suddenly flushed red. His temples suddenly swelled, and the muscles of his right arm followed suit. Bursting with strength, he counteracted Zhuo Yanjun's Yin force. The veins on the back of his hand bulged, as if they had doubled in size. After the swelling, Lin Kei first pulled his arm back and then bounced out, shaking off Zhuo Yanjun's palm blade. Then he put strength in his waist and back, pouncing forward and switching from defense to offense. Zhuo Yanjun didn't have time to adjust herself, so she could only continuously retreat. She saw Lin Kei coming closer and closer. His temples were swollen, and his left arm was about to deliver a fierce punch. She clenched her teeth and imitated Hou. When Lin Kei swung his fist, she suddenly squatted down and put her left hand behind her back. At that moment, Lin Kei's body trembled. His left fist suddenly swung back, and using his back as a fulcrum, he bounced out with his right leg. Bam! His right foot was taut, and his kick split the air. Zhuo Yanjun hurriedly raised her left hand to her side, blocking Lin Kei's kick while her center of gravity was unstable. Bam! Her body swayed, but she didn't control it. She pushed the boat along the current to the right. Lin Kei's chi and blood all over his body abruptly shrank into a ball, and then suddenly erupted. Boom! His strength surging, Lin Kei crushed the black bricks under his feet and pounced forward. He rushed to Zhuo Yanjun's side before she could regain her balance. His temples swelled, and he quickly swung his arm, blasting out a meteor energy. Zhuo Yanjun didn't have time to dodge. She took a short breath and barely managed to raise her arms to block in front of her. Bam! She only felt like she had been hit by a bomb. Every bone in her body was shaking, and even her muscles and fascia were trembling. Coupled with her unstable center of gravity, she directly fell on her back. She had no time or ability to wriggle her abdominal muscles to make a ha-ha sound in order to counteract the shock. Lin Kei moved forward. His right hand didn't attack. Instead, he grabbed her arm and lifted her up. At that moment, the referee loudly announced, "First round, Lin Kei wins." Chapter 217. The referee's announcement was met with cheers and honking horns. Winning at the start was always a joyous thing. Hearing Lin Kei again and again, Lu Qing couldn't help but whisper in Yan Jika's ear, almost dance stage, how enviable. Indeed, if he and brother-in-law were in different positions and encountered Zhuo Yanjun's drawing sword and breaking water style, it would be impossible for him to unify all the strength in his body as one, stop as he wished, and hammer down to block in time. Faced with this extremely fast and ruthless move, he would most likely only be able to take advantage of the situation and throw himself to the side, hastily dodging. Then, he would fall into the opponent's follow-up moves, and with the slightest bit of carelessness, he could possibly capsize unexpectedly. This was like the ninth pin of the dark sect, who was tricked by the supernatural ability of fire, and in the blink of an eye, he was hit by a chain of attacks and died on the spot. At that time, he was inferior to the enemy in all aspects of martial arts. Similarly, when Lu Qing resolved the second wave of Yin and Yang, he couldn't do it at the moment. He had to understand the meaning of a withdraw and train his strength to be both hard and soft, to be able to release it, incorporeal. Of course, this didn't mean that he had no way to deal with the second wave of Yin and Yang. If he grasped it well, he could use the swing force to resolve it. Yanjika's face was full of joy, and her lips curved into a smile. After hearing Lu Cheng's sigh, she lowered her voice and joked, "This is your little goal." Little goal? Lu Cheng smelled the girl's fragrance and smiled slightly. Reaching the physical invulnerability stage in 1 year was still too far away and didn't feel real. But it wouldn't be long before he could train martial arts into his body and reach the peak of his current state. Then he would be qualified to explore the meaning of withdrawing and unifying his strength. They were real, right in front of him, and he could reach out and touch them. Thinking that he could reach this level and the next step really made him excited. Using Zhao Chang's catchphrase, it was exciting. This is my little goal for the second half of the year. In the away team seats, Zhou Jingquan flicked his black martial arts suit and took large strides towards the arena like an immortal. When he met Zhui Yanjun, he nodded slightly and said, "Better than I expected." He was tactfully praising Zhui Yanjun for fighting well. If Lin Ke hadn't reached the Dan stage, it would have been hard to say who would win. Zhui Yanjun held back her feelings and urged, "Hurry up and get on the stage. Don't give him time to recover." In the previous round, Lin Ke had tried his best to end the battle quickly, so he had used up a lot of energy. Zhou Jingquan nodded with a smile. His body didn't sway as he exerted force with his feet and strode into the ring, standing opposite of Lin Quebec. At this moment, the audience's cheers were getting louder and louder. A large portion of them knew that the biggest hurdle had come. The referee became spirited and swung his right hand. He did not give the two sides a chance to adjust. Begin. Lin Ke's muscles and bones crackled as he rushed toward Zhou Jingquan at lightning speed. It seemed that he wanted to repeat the story from before, using the offensive to gain the upper hand, and relying on the fierce battle of life and death to kill the strong enemy. When enemies meet on a narrow path, the courageous one wins. This was what it looked like, but in reality, Zhou Jingquan did not feel any tingling sensation from being attacked. A strong fighter of the Dan stage had absolute reaction. However, Zhou Jingquan did not dare to be careless, because he suspected that Lin Ke had mastered the ability of concealment after absolute reaction. In other words, he relied on the contraction of his qi and blood to hide his intention to attack until the moment he actually made a move. If that was the case, under certain circumstances, even with absolute reaction, he might not be able to block it in time. Zhou Jingquan retreated a few steps. His movements were as calm as flowing water, and his movements were extremely natural and at ease. Lin Ke, on the other hand, released his momentum like a rainbow soaring into the sky. The strength under his feet burst forth, and his body turned into a meteor, upright and mighty. At this moment, Zhou Jingquan seemed to have an illusion that he could not block the attack head-on. He understood that his momentum was being suppressed by his opponent, to the point that ripples appeared in his soul. This kind of situation could easily cause a misjudgment. He smiled slightly and stopped as he said. He bent his legs, shook his waist and back, and clenched his right hand into a fist, and hammered down with a whistle. This was not a swing, but a twisting movement of his waist and back. He twisted the strength of his body into one, and released an attack that was only slightly weaker than force concentration. Bam! Not only did the airflow explode, but it was also compressed by the fist, turning into an invisible arrow that flew straight towards Lin Ke's face. Lin Ke only felt a strong wind in his face, and he almost could not open his eyes. His momentum was stagnant, but his state of mind was firm, and he did not waver in the slightest. He narrowed his eyes, and using the momentum of the forward pounce, he straightened his back and quickly swung his arms. He did not back down and threw a forward punch. As for the follow-up, he was already prepared. Once he met Zhou Jingquan's downward punch, he would immediately use yin-yang twist to quickly release meteor force, and then imitate the explosion of the Dan stage to complete a two-hit combo. Victory would be decided in a few moves. Bam! As soon as the two fists collided, Zhou Jingquan's qi, blood, and spirit suddenly converged. His arms immediately became soft, making Lin Ke feel as if he had hit empty air. The powerful attack just now had turned invisible. His blood flowed back, and his strength gathered. His lower abdomen seemed to have condensed into a Dan. Boom! The human body Big Dan exploded, and a mighty force gushed out. Zhou Jingquan's right fist, which had been bounced away by his opponent because of its softness, suddenly returned and took the initiative to meet Lin Ke's yin-yang twist. This force was so strong that when Lin Ke borrowed it, his body immediately trembled and involuntarily pulled back. He was pulled back 2 steps by the invisible rope. Zhou Jingquan took a big step forward and came in front of his opponent. In his mind, he visualized a rising stream of water, combined with the contraction and condensation of his qi, blood, and strength once again. Double explosion. Fly fall punch, waterfall. Lin Kei's entire body's strength was as one. Within 2 steps, he had already adjusted his center of gravity, but his opponent had already caught up. He raised his right fist high and hammered down like a waterfall. There was no time to dodge or retreat. He took a deep breath and condensed his blood, breath, and strength into a ball. Immediately after, the ball exploded, and a gale swept through. Lin Kei's temples swelled, and his face flushed red. Compressing his muscles and swinging his arms quickly, Lin Kei was not afraid and blasted the meteor force diagonally upwards. Bang! There seemed to be thunder in the place, and the sound reverberated outwards. Zhou Jingquan and Lin Kei's fists seemed to be frozen in the air, and their bodies shook together, their muscles clearly trembling. Zhou Jingquan didn't make a sound. He gathered his qi and blood again and held the dan, condensing the feeling of vibration, strength, and spirit into one point. In his mind, the flood was surging, filling the lake, and finally breaking the dam. Bang! That point suddenly exploded, and the strength was like a flood breaking the dam, pouring into Zhou Jingquan's body. As he quickly turned his back, the strength poured into his left arm. Fly fall punch, dam break. Dan stage triple explosion. Bang! Zhou Jingquan's left fist became a hammer and fiercely hammered out, constantly exploding the airflow along the way. From the beginning, he had learned a lesson from the last fight against Lu Cheng. No longer overcautious, he directly used all his strength without any reservation. This would definitely consume a lot of his physical strength, but at least he wouldn't enter the next round with the influence of Tremor Punch. If he was overcautious and kept thinking about the fight with Lu Cheng, not only would he not be able to reduce the consumption of physical strength, but he would also be left with the vibration, which would be more difficult. Lin Kei was not a real Dan stage fighter, so naturally he couldn't burst out continuously. His eyes were firm and his expression was fearless while his body was still trembling. He once again swelled his temples, tightened his muscles, and twisted his waist to punch like a meteor. Bang! The two collided, and the majestic force surged. Lin Kei couldn't stand steadily anymore. He forced himself to use yin-yang twist to bounce back, so as not to break his arm and suffer internal injuries. But Zhou Jingquan didn't suffer any shock, as he had expected it. He caught up with his opponent in a few steps. Before his opponent could adjust his center of gravity, Zhou Jingquan's shoulder exploded, and his right arm shook, stopping his fist at Lin Kei's throat. Until then, Lin Kei's feet barely touched the ground. The power of triple explosion could really defeat all the fighters below professional 8th pin. The referee raised his right hand and shouted emotionlessly, "Second round, Zhou Jingquan wins." Lu Cheng took a deep breath and directly stood up from his seat. To be honest, he didn't expect Zhou Jingquan to burst out with triple explosion at the beginning of the match. He thought they would be entangled for a long time. But this is good. Although brother-in-law didn't let Zhou Jingquan be affected by the vibration, at least I don't have to worry about his strongest killing move. He reached out his hand and shook Yenjika's hand. He stepped forward and walked to the arena. The audience was silent at first, and then burst into screaming, "Lu Cheng!" Chapter 218. In the live broadcast room of Songqing TV station, the host Fang Juexia shook his head and smiled. This match ended faster than I expected. Old Gan, hurry up and tell us what happened. Gan Le smiled and said. Gan Le chuckled and replied, "There's nothing to say. Zhou Jingquan's Dan stage triple explosion, when he is in perfect condition, can kill a professional 8th pin fighter head-on. Lin Kei has just defeated a strong professional 9th pin fighter and consumed a lot of energy. This is the exact opposite of last week's fight. At that time, Zhou Jingquan had defeated Lu Qing, while Lin Ke was in his peak condition. Therefore, today's result is reasonable. The only surprise is that Zhou Jingquan didn't hold back at all from the beginning, as if he didn't consider the next round. Lin Ke should be proud. Zhou Jingquan is treating him as an opponent of the same level. There's no need to be depressed. After all, he forced Zhou Jingquan to use triple explosion of Dan's stage, right? Lu Qing doesn't have to worry about this in the next round. Fang Juexiao heard the director's prompt and interrupted in time. Well, Lu Qing is on the arena. The third round is about to start. Let's wait and see. Yan Xiaoling, who was watching the match broadcast and chatting on the forum, suddenly sat up straight and adjusted her posture, staring at the screen with bright eyes. Lu Qing. Lu Qing. Echoing in every corner of the martial arts arena, Lin Ke walked down the arena with a slight stagger. The head-on collision just now made his qi and blood boil, and he couldn't calm down for a while. When he met Lu Qing, he slightly lowered his head and gasped, almost, not good enough. Even though Zhou Jingquan had used Dan's stage triple explosion, should be able to do even better. That's enough. Lu Qing interrupted him and took the initiative to stretch out his right hand. Lin Ke hesitated for a moment and responded. Not only did he give a high five, but he also gave a strong handshake. At the same time, he whispered, "Come on." Lu Qing nodded, adjusted his state, and strode to the stone steps. Next, he had to find and create an opportunity to give Zhou Jingquan a severe warning. Of course, this was a killing move that could only be used once. If he wanted to complete the severe warning, he could only use the frost force once or the tremor punch 3 or 4 times before that. At this moment, Zhou Jingquan was doing breathing in and out methodically. His abdomen expanded and contracted, and his throat made a humming sound. Seeing Lu Qing on the arena and standing in front of him, the referee didn't stop. He raised his right hand and swung it down fiercely. Begin. From the last match and the daily practice with Lin Ke, Lu Qing was sure that the fake moves completed by visualization could not be hidden from the real absolute reaction. Therefore, he didn't try. He straightened his knees, moved his hips, and strode towards Zhou Jingquan. He didn't pounce straight away. Instead, he gathered his strength step by step and adjusted the corresponding parts of his body. He tightened and bulged different muscles and was ready to use severe warning. If Zhou Jingquan felt that his posture was too good and couldn't help but attack with full strength, he would fall into his trap. But if he didn't fall for it, it was just a part of his body that hadn't entered the visualization stage, so it wouldn't consume much energy. This was Lu Qing's first attempt. It seemed to be a regular attack, but it was full of hidden killing intent. Thump. 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 Lu Qing's steps became heavier and heavier. The green bricks under his feet began to crack. His body seemed to be taller with the support of momentum. He looked down at Zhou Jingquan. When he turned his waist and extended his right arm, Zhou Jingquan, who had been quietly waiting, moved. His center of gravity swayed, his feet slipped, and he flashed to his side. He shook his right shoulder and let his arms slanted out like an oar. Bam! Lu Qing knew that the trap was not complete, so he gave up visualization and didn't use the severe warning, in case he missed. He quickly adjusted his body. His waist tightened, his thighs tightened, and he completed a side kick. It was fast, accurate, and fierce. Zhou Jingquan's shoulders sank, and he swung his center of gravity again. Like a ghost, he changed his position and came to Lu Qing's right side. He tightened his arms and bent his waist again. He drew the airflow like an iron whip and whipped to Lu Qing's head. Sure enough, he was fighting with the mercurial center of gravity. If he had used the severe warning recklessly, he would have suffered a great loss. Lu Qing thought. He suddenly lowered his waist and bent his legs. He clenched his fist and swung it upward, as if he was moving or blocking. Bang! With a muffled sound, Lu Qing swung his right arm and borrowed strength. When he was about to use the 24 blizzard strikes to whip Zhou Jingquan, he found that Zhou Jingxuan's center of gravity swayed and changed his direction again. This caused an irreversible interruption of his roaring gale, making it difficult for him to fight more fiercely and crazily. Zhou Jingquan flashed to Lu Cheng's back. He outlined his abdominal muscles and affected the fascia. He shot out his left arm and hit Lu Cheng's spine with a bang. This move was fast and compact. It was the continuation of fly-fall punch. Lu Cheng swung his waist and back. He swung his elbow sideways. The air burst and made a crisp sound. After the fist and elbow hit, Zhou Jingxuan's back muscles bulged. He rushed his right hand and made another move without leaving any gap. Bang! 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 They kept colliding in the small space. Lu Cheng resisted Zhou Jingxuan's continuous attacks with the 24 blizzard strikes that he couldn't continue. Although he was not in a precarious situation due to the experience of the last fight, in such a situation, not to mention preparing severe warning, he did not even have the chance to use Frost Force and Tremor Punch. Lu Cheng seized the opportunity. After blocking Zhou Jingxuan's crushing punch with his raised arm, he suddenly turned his waist and back. He opened all his muscles and joints and sent out a violent swing force. He wanted to use the same trick he had used the last time. He wanted to use the swing force to create a short time for him to tighten and compress his muscles to throw the tremor punch. Once Zhou Jingxuan's body was shaken, he would have to stop it with a hum or a force concentration. That would be his chance to give his enemy a severe warning. However, Zhou Jingquan didn't force the swing this time. He flew to the side, which made Lu Cheng's tremor punch lose its target. He bent and straightened his leg, and his strength burst out, shattering the bricks. His body pounced out, chasing after his prey like a goshawk. He adjusted his muscles, and once again prepared for the prelude to the severe warning. Bang! 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 Every step he took was a piece of black brick, and his momentum was extremely fierce. Zhou Jingquan, on the other hand, seemed to have eyes on the back of his head. He kept retreating like flowing water and moving clouds. From time to time, he would change his direction with mercurial balance, like a butterfly dancing on the field. One chased and the other retreated. They almost went around the field, but the distance between them didn't change. At this time, Lu Cheng's body couldn't maintain the corresponding changes of the severe warning. He could only let go of his preparation and let his momentum weaken. It was because of this weakness that Zhou Jingxuan's legs suddenly stopped. All of the kinetic energy was accumulated in his muscles and fascia. Crack! The bricks under his feet cracked. In his mind, he visualized a rising water flow and a fierce waterfall hitting the ground. Taking advantage of Lu Cheng's momentary change in qi, he pulled back his arm and threw out a punch like a bolt of lightning. Like a bomb bombardment, he launched a mighty blow. Fly-fall punch, waterfall. Lu Cheng forced himself to take a deep breath, and the image of a thundercloud appeared in his mind. The corresponding muscles tightened quickly, and he raised his left foot, twisted his waist, and smashed out with his right arm as if he was holding a huge hammer. Bang! The thunderclouds exploded in Lu Cheng's mind. His two fists froze in the air. Circles of invisible ripples rippled out rapidly. Both of them felt that their muscles and fascia were trembling, their internal organs were shaking, and their breath and blood were boiling. They couldn't exert force for a short time. His abdominal muscles wriggled along with his internal organs. Lu Cheng's body produced a thunderous sound, which echoed Zhou Jingxuan's throat. Both of them made a reverse vibration with their inner practice at the same time. They offset most of the effects and recovered at the same time. Zhou Jingquan swayed his center of gravity again and launched the fly-fall punch, continuation. Once Lu Cheng borrowed 2 or 3 times, he would change the rhythm skillfully and make his opponent unable to follow up. I can't be led by the nose. After fighting for a while, Lu Cheng decided to take the initiative to create an opportunity to launch the severe warning. When Zhou Jingquan once again circled behind him with his mercurial balance, he suddenly exerted his strength, flicked his waist and back, and pounced forward. It seemed that he was trying to distance himself from Zhou Jingquan and get rid of the fly-fall punch. Thump, thump, thump. Lu Qing listened to the footsteps behind him and began to adjust his muscles and fascia. Once his opponent approached him, he would immediately launch a counterattack. Crack. He stepped on the ground and broke the black bricks. He turned around and was about to pounce on his opponent while visualizing the falling sun ice thunder to launch a well-prepared attack. However, when he turned around, he was stunned. Zhou Jingquan kept a good distance from him so that he couldn't follow up with another attack. Otherwise, his opponent would have plenty of time to dodge. Zhou Jingquan found Lu Cheng was stunned. He smiled and crooked his finger, like a cat playing with a mouse. This was a naked provocation and contempt, which made the audience and Yan Shaoling, who was watching the live broadcast, so angry that their chests almost exploded. Damn it! Lu Cheng's anger rose in his heart, but he soon calmed down because of Hou Yu's example. He caught the key point in a flash. Zhou Jingquan was deliberately provoking him. Why did he do that? Did he want me to take the initiative to attack and take the initiative to try? As this thought flashed through his mind, Lu Qing immediately came to a realization. Why would I painstakingly create an opportunity to use severe warning? As long as he waited patiently, this opportunity would definitely appear. Because in Zhou Jingquan's eyes, my physical strength was so abnormal that it was almost limitless. But he had just completed the Dan stage triple explosion in the battle with Lin Ke, so his body was declining in all aspects. If he continued to suppress me with continuous, he was afraid that before I showed any flaws, he would be exhausted and even lose the ability to burst out his full strength once or twice. Therefore, his continuous attacks just now were just to provoke me so that I would find an opportunity to take the initiative to counterattack. Once I failed 3 times in a row and reached a low point, it would be time for him to erupt with all his strength and try to win. He was a little anxious before and thought that he had mastered the killer move, so he almost made a mistake. Facing Zhou Jingquan's provocation, Lu Qing put on a stable stance and waved to his opponent. Come on. Let's compete in physical strength. Chapter 219. Of course, Zhou Jingquan was not stupid enough to compete with Lu Qing in terms of physical strength. This was the truth that the previous martyrs had proved with their own honor and disgrace. He was not that stubborn to confirm it himself. Sometimes, people had to believe in evil. At first, he was sensitive enough to notice that Lu Qing was trying to end the fight quickly, so he planned to weaken his opponent's momentum bit by bit. When the time was right, he would immediately burst out and win with all his strength. Now that he saw Lu Qing calm down and assume a steady defense, his heart skipped a beat. He knew that his plan A was completely ruined and could no longer be realized. He could only try the plan B prepared before the fight. If so, my image will be ruined. Zhou Jingquan arched his back and dashed forward like a bolt of lightning. When he was close to Lu Qing, he swayed his center of gravity and slid to Lu Cheng's side as if he was treading on water. He twisted his waist and shoulder, twisted his whole body's strength, and punched his right arm diagonally. He performed the surge of fly-fall punch. Bam! Lu Cheng's right arm tightened and swung sideways. Like an iron whip, it exploded the air. Even if it was a stone in front of him, it could be smashed into pieces. Bang! In the muffled sound, Lu Cheng's body swayed a bit, while Zhou Jingquan moved away and repeated the pattern just now. Bam, 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 bam. They kept fighting and separating. Fly-fall punches, continuous, and 24 blizzard strikes showed their strengths. Everything was like a reenactment of the previous story. However, Lu Qing, who had calmed down, was very clear that the essence was different. The one who was looking for an opportunity impatiently was not himself but Zhou Jingquan. He patiently defended and assumed a posture to compete with physical strength consumption. At the same time, he was ready to face Zhou Jingquan's full outbreak. At the climax of the battle, Zhou Jingquan gradually gained the upper hand in this kind of close-range fight where he couldn't use his feet to exert force. Lu Cheng was firmly suppressed, and Lu Cheng cooperated with this process, waiting for changes to appear. Bam! After Zhou Jingxuan's low kick failed, he hit Lu Cheng's arm with a single whip. Lu Cheng lowered his center of gravity and suddenly turned his waist and back. His joints and muscles were all opened, and again a strong, swing force was released. He knew that Zhou Jingquan would not let go of this opportunity. Zhou Jingxuan's upper body swayed to the side. Just as he was about to be flung away, his qi and blood suddenly flowed back and gathered in his dantian, making him as steady as Mount Tai, not moving an inch. Amazing. Compared to exerting strength in both feet, borrowing the force to swing back, who knew how much more brilliant it was? Lu Cheng praised in his mind. But he had already seized the short time to compress the corresponding muscles and fascia of his arms and visualize rolling thunderclouds. Then he suddenly pushed his left foot inwards, straightened his back, and clasped his hands together. In a manner that could split mountains and rocks, he slammed it diagonally from the top right to the bottom left. Mountain-shattering quake. Kacha, a spider web appeared at his feet. In Zhou Jingxuan's mind, there was the image of a waterfall pouring down from a towering mountain, the torrent violently crashing against the ground, and the spray of water splashing into the air. The condensed point in his dantian exploded with a bang. All of the power converged into one and gushed out fiercely, causing his arm to draw into a bow and his fist to turn into a hammer. Pa! Zhou Jingxuan's whole body seemed to expand. He shot out his right fist in a condescending manner, penetrating through layers of air. Fly fall punch, waterfall. Bang! A muffled thunder sounded in the arena, shaking the cheers of the audience to a halt. Invisible ripples turned into a gust of wind, blowing in all directions from the place where Lu Cheng and Zhou Jingquan clashed. Lu Cheng's body jumped a little, his ears were ringing, his eyes were dizzy, and his qi and blood were tumbling. It seemed that he could not bear the full power of the dance stage and had to take a step back. 1 step was not enough. 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps. At the same time, his abdomen wriggled and his body emitted a thunderous sound, counteracting the shock caused by the impact of the waterfall. Zhou Jingquan, who was hit by the mountain-shattering quake of Thunder War Zen, was not in a good condition either. Every bone and every joint in his body was shaking, and every inch of his tendons and flesh was rippling. Seeing that Lu Cheng was retreating after the head-on collision, Zhou Jingquan was unable to catch up with him and seize the opportunity to win. Such a scene was exactly what Lu Cheng had expected. After taking 4 steps back, he eliminated the shock and dissolved the majestic power of the dance stage explosion. He began to adjust the corresponding parts of his body, preparing to stomp on the ground and take the initiative to counterattack. Severe warning. At this moment, the trembling of Zhou Jingxuan's body, the tumbling of his body, and the paleness of his face suddenly gathered together with his qi, blood, and mental strength to form a human body Big Dan. In the live broadcast room of Songqing TV station, Ganle blurted out, "Double explosion." After completing the triple explosion of the Dan stage, Zhou Jingquan could still make another double explosion. Yan Shaoling, Brahman, and the rest of the audience, who had just heard the horror of the triple explosion of the Dan stage from the commentator, held their breaths and felt inexplicably uneasy. According to last week's competition and the previous video, everyone guessed that Zhou Jingquan could still complete the Dan stage explosion 2 or 3 times without any injury. But no one expected that he could make another double explosion. Brahman, Ganlu, Yanjika, and Lu Qing did not expect this. When he saw Zhou Jingxuan's force concentration, he had only completed half of the preparation for the severe warning. It was too late. Lu Qing made a prompt decision and stopped the follow-up. He slightly adjusted the change of his body and changed it to the prerequisite of the frost force. Fortunately, the severe warning was a combination of the frost force. The two had too many similarities in the corresponding state of the bones, muscles, and viscera. The former was more complicated, while the latter was relatively simpler, which was suitable for Lu Qing to complete quickly. Boom! When pressed to the extreme, it could also explode to the extreme. The Dan in Zhou Jingxuan's body exploded, and all the accumulated strength in his body surged out, making him a little taller and more powerful. He caught up with Lu Qing in one leap, raised his right hand high, and turned it into a waterfall, surging down. The turbid river in Lu Cheng's mind suddenly froze and froze inch by inch. Its rolling posture became a still picture. The cold current in his body turned into a tide. Lu Qing put his feet together, twisted his waist, and bounced his right arm, clenched his fist, and punched upward. Rocket-propelled cannon, frost force. Bang! Lu Cheng's body suddenly became shorter, and his feet sank into the bluestone a little. His qi and blood surged crazily, triggering the previous shock, shaking his viscera, muscles, and tendons. He almost tasted something sweet in his throat, which made him feel sick and uncomfortable. Unable to do anything, he could only roll back along with the majesty of the waterfall to dissolve the remaining force and avoid fractures or internal injuries. And Zhou Jingxuan's fist was covered with a layer of white frost. Part of the cold current was dispersed, but part of it poured into his body and quickly spread to his whole body. He couldn't help but shiver and stiffen his muscles. If his body was still in the same condition as before, he would naturally be able to quickly beat his heart, surge his blood, and dissolve the ice. But after forcibly completing 2 successive strikes, he was almost exhausted. Moreover, he was hit by a mountain-shattering quake, which made his viscera uncomfortable. For a short time, he actually stayed there and couldn't catch up with Lu Qing, who had lost his center of gravity and lost his stance. Thump. 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 Everyone was praying for Lu Qing in silence, hoping that he could stand up first. Yenjika couldn't sit still anymore. She stood up from her seat and looked at the arena with concern and anxiety. Thump. Lu Cheng's vibration was slightly relieved. He immediately jumped up like a carp and stood up. Li Liantong, Fan Yanxi, and the rest of the audience instinctively cheered, but they saw Zhou Jingquan move. His lips were pale, and he stepped on the black bricks and pounced on Lu Cheng. Again, he visualized the power of the waterfall and raised his right arm. Bam! He clenched his fist and chopped down. Waterfall of fly fall punch. Lu Cheng's feet were still shaking, so he didn't have time to dodge. He could only gather his remaining strength and tighten the muscles of his hands, wrists, forearms, and upper arms to visualize the flashing silver-white thundercloud. Thump. He didn't show any weakness and punched upward. Thunder Roar Zen. Bang! As soon as the two touched, he immediately exploded the tight part, which made a short but strong impact. Thump. Lu Cheng and Zhou Jingquan stepped back at the same time. When their feet landed, they were both floating. Their bodies were obviously trembling, and their eyes were blank. Thump. Humph. Both of them recovered at the same time. Zhou Jingquan gathered his strength again, twisted his waist and back, and stretched out his arms to hit the waterfall of fly fall punch again. When two rivals meet on a narrow road, the brave wins. Lu Qing knew he couldn't dodge at this time. He also visualized the thundercloud, compressed the corresponding fascia and muscles, and hit the sky rocket cannon with Thunder Roar Zen as the base. Bang! Both of them were shocked and felt so disgusted that they wanted to vomit. They felt that every part of their bodies was trembling, as if they had lost control of their bodies in a short time. Thump. Lu Qing recovered a little from the thunder in his abdomen. He didn't make any adjustments, but swung his left arm and hit the Thunder Roar Zen again. Zhou Jingquan was obviously a little slower. He could only barely raise his arms to block the attack. Bang! His body jumped a little, and his arms became soft and weak. Is he exhausted? Lu Qing didn't want to show mercy. He shook his right shoulder and hit the Thunder Roar Zen again. Bang! Zhou Jingquan was like being hit by a bomb. After blocking the attack, he fell to the ground. He curled up his body and kept retching. If he continued to fight, he would have internal bleeding. The referee raised his right hand and calmly shouted, Round 3, Lu Qing wins. Seeing the scene of Zhou Jingquan falling to the ground and hearing the referee's announcement, Huan Fan, Yan Xiaoling, and the others in front of the computer, as well as Li Liantong, Fan Yanxi, and the other audience members in the scene, all let out a sigh of relief. Lu Qing. While cheering, they were shocked to see Lu Qing bend over and retch with a painful expression. Obviously, he was not relaxed. Yenjika's heart was in her mouth again. At this time, Lu Qing, who felt uncomfortable all over, was a little confused. How could this battle be more difficult and dangerous than he expected? Not only did he not find a chance to hit the severe warning, but he also left a strong impact. Although he won, it was a Pyrrhic victory. Even if Zhou Jingquan could hit the double combo again, it shouldn't be like this. When he thought of severe warning, he suddenly had an epiphany. He remembered the various problems he had exposed when he used this move. He also remembered the few words his master had said to him. Do you think Zhou Jingquan will stand there like a wooden stake and wait for you to prepare the severe warning? Wait for you to meet force with force? Even your frost force needs a short period of time to complete, let alone the severe warning that you just learned. If you really put your hope on this move, you will be like a 3-year-old child holding a 1,000-pound hammer. Not only will you not hit the enemy, but you will also hurt yourself easily. The purpose of practicing severe warning is not to master it, but to use it to further master Frost Force and Thunder Roar Zen. This is what you have to fight against Zhou Jingquan. That's right. Back then, I clearly felt that it made a lot of sense. But when I thought about the unity of opposites, I ignored those words and focused all my attention on mastering and using severe warning. Geezer Sure in the home team's seat sighed and said to himself, I was like this in the past. It was hard to forget oneself. Chapter 220. In the live broadcast room of Songqing TV station, the host Fang Juexiao couldn't help but praise, "This match is really wonderful. I haven't had such a fierce fight for a long time. Old Gon, I see that Lu Qing is in pain and has been retching. How much do you think he is affected by the concussion?" Gon sighed, his body refinement is close to the peak. If it wasn't for the fact that he felt extremely uncomfortable and couldn't control his body, he wouldn't have displayed the appearance of retching. Sigh, I originally thought quite highly of him. I thought that as long as he could pass Zhou Jingquan's test, with that abnormal physical strength of his, he would have a great chance of beating Hou Yu. So serious? Fang Juexiao asked even though he already knew the answer. He knew that the audience watching the live broadcast would definitely be very concerned about this. Even the students watching the live broadcast would probably check the forum and watch the live broadcast intermittently to understand Lu Qing's current situation from their explanations. Gamla nodded as a mighty one of the dance stage, shattering many people's expectations. Yes, very serious. Fang Juexiao made a regretful expression. Unfortunately, there is no time to talk to let him recover. Well, Hou Yu is about to enter the ring. Let's switch back to the scene. After listening to the analysis of the two commentators, Yan Xiaoling's heart tightened. She hurriedly posted a post in the BBS and tagged Unparalleled Dragon King and Road to the Arena, come out quickly. Is our Lu Qing serious? Unparalleled Dragon King replied with a sighing emoji. Can my vision and judgment be better than a mighty one of the dance stage? My judgment is the same as that of the commentators. Lu Qing is greatly affected and his physical condition is very bad. Road to the Arena answered seriously. Brahman sent an emoji of holding back tears. What should I do? I want to cry so much. Don't cry. Let's cheer for Lu Qing together. Yan Xiaoling quickly gathered her strength. With tears in her eyes, she bit her lips and clenched her fists, looking at the live broadcast nervously and expectantly. In the martial arts arena of Songqing University, although Li Liantong and others didn't check the BBS or listen to the commentary, when they saw Lu Qing's painful performance through the big screen, they still felt an inexplicable concern and bad premonition. How is he? Is he injured? Would they lose the next match? The excited shouts that had erupted because of Zhou Jingquan's fall had quieted down. Many of the female students, including Fan Yanxi, had put on a praying posture, their hands covering their mouths. "Come on, Lu Cheng." In the seats of the home team, Yenjika walked to the stone steps, ignoring the gazes of others. She bit her lower lip with her pearly white teeth, looking distressed and worried. Her hands were clenched into fists. In the arena, Lu Cheng recovered a little. He had no time to review, reflect, or be annoyed. He suppressed all kinds of emotions first. He concealed his spirit and chi, visualized the thundercloud, wriggled his abdomen, and seized the little time to use the internal training method to adjust the state of his body. Every bit of recovery counted. Energy was not completely independent of the body. It was also rooted in the state of the body. Like a person who caught a cold, not only was he tired and weak, but also his thinking was slow. When Lu Cheng was so affected, his spirit was naturally weakened, and he didn't have the ability to use the severe warning again. Later, he would make a solid defense. He would use his supernatural ability with the help of the frost force or simply hide it in his normal moves to exhaust his strength to the limit as soon as possible and squeeze the Jin Dan. If he fell into a dangerous situation, this would be the only way. Lu Cheng quickly made a decision not to admit defeat easily. This was not only because he showed confidence in Ku at the last minute and said bold words, but also because he was carried away and failed to live up to his brother-in-law's efforts and pain. There was also a very important reason. "I want to win. Nothing else, I want to win." He took a breath, and his abdomen roared like thunder. When the referee announced the result of the third round, Hoyu jumped up from his seat and ran to the arena without thinking. He always remembered that before he walked out of the locker room, senior brother Zhou told him to run to the arena immediately without any delay once he heard the announcement of the last round's result. When he got close, he was stunned because he saw his senior brother curled up on the ground like a shrimp. His hair was messy, his expression was painful, and he even vomited a little bile. Is this senior brother Zhou? In Hoyu's memory, senior brother Zhou Jinquan was a person who paid great attention to appearance and manners. His most worshipped idol was Xian, who played chess calmly after hearing the news of the victory at Fei River. His hair and clothes were always meticulous, and his words and deeds were always calm and gentle. He had lost before, but in rare failures, he left the arena gracefully, and was ridiculed by senior sister Zhua and senior sister Li for wanting to be gracious and not get any benefits. But now, senior brother Zhou was so painful and lost his self-control. In order to create a chance for himself to defeat Lu Cheng, he even gave up his most valued image. Hoyu, who was only a few days away from turning 18, was the age when he was most easily moved and excited. Thinking of this, his eyes immediately turned red, and his fighting spirit surged. No matter what he had to pay, no matter how hard he had to fight, he couldn't let senior brother Zhou down. When Hoyu walked to the stone steps, Zhou Jinquan had been helped down by the staff. When they passed by each other, Zhou Jinquan, with messy hair and a pale face, murmured, "Fight." Hoyu nodded hard, clenched his fist and said, "Fight." In the face of such a strong enemy like Lu Cheng, how could he win if he didn't fight, no matter how weak and painful he was? If he didn't fight, how could he seize the opportunity when his body was still affected by the shock? Hoyu stepped into the arena and stood at the position where Zhou Jinquan stood before, hearing the buzzing sound from Lu Cheng's body. Lu Cheng opened his eyes, exhaled a foul air, and instantly switched from internal training to fighting mode. The referee raised his right hand and waved it down steadily. "Start." Lu Cheng, whose calves were still trembling, didn't move. Even if he could move, he wouldn't, because it was not a wise idea to chase a monkey running all over the arena, especially in his current state. And if he was careless, his mood would be affected. The more he fought, the more anxious he would be, and the more serious the problem would become. So, he took a breath, and calmly observed Hoyu's every move. He was not only waiting for his opponent's attack, but also seizing the time to recover. The longer the battle lasted, the better it was for him. Hoyu jumped around Lu Cheng with his agile footwork. He took a sudden step forward when he saw the opportunity and rushed to the side of his opponent. Then he turned his waist and twisted the strength of his whole body into one, and punched at his opponent's waist. Lu Qing sat down, straightened his spine, exploded the strength of his shoulders, clenched his fist, and punched down with a whistling sound. Bang! In the muffled sound, both sides shook. Just when Lu Qing thought Hou Yu would take the opportunity to dodge and continue to fight, he saw Hou Yu clench his teeth, widen his eyes, and suddenly put strength in his feet, which made several cracks. He wants to use the fly-fall punch, waterfall, to trigger the remaining influence in my body? Lu Qing instantly understood Hou Yu's plan, but he knew his physical condition was not enough to support this dodge, so he also clenched his teeth, adjusted the corresponding muscles and fascia, wriggled the related viscera, and visualized a vast river. Who's afraid of you? Lu Qing, with the courage to risk his life, froze the turbid river, made the waves crystal clear, made the world stand still, and made the muscles of his arms expand, as if he was holding a heavy object, and punched up. Cold current into tide, frost force. At this time, Hou Yu also violently clenched his fist and chopped down with the flying fall 3,000 feet. Bang! There was a brief haze at the place where the two fists met, like a thin mist of white frost. Lu Qing's body trembled obviously again, and the muscles of his face twitched uncontrollably. The remaining influence in his body was triggered a lot, which made his previous attempt to recover in vain. Hou Yu kept shivering, his lips turned purple, and his hands and feet were stiff and cold. Thump. 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 His heart beat violently, expanded and contracted quickly, and spurted out a stream of hot blood to dissolve the coldness in his body. Then, he made a choice that was contrary to his fighting style and character. Again, he visualized the accumulating and rising source, twisted his waist, and popped out his arms. Not even half a step back. At the same time, Lu Qing also wriggled his abdomen, visualized the thundercloud, and made a reverse offset, which was a preliminary relief. Facing Hou Yu's ferocious face and unflinching attack, he had no time to change his visualization, so he had to change his internal training to external attack, tightened his arms, and launched the sky cannon. Bang! There seemed to be an explosion in the arena, and the two were rebounded by the impact, and each took a step back. Humph! Hou Yu used his internal training method. His eyes were red, and the shock had yet to dissipate. He stepped on the black bricks and pounced forward again. He fought crazily, forgetting himself, disregarding everything. He fought like he was not himself. At this time, Lu Qing was so uncomfortable that he wanted to lie down directly. He had no time or opportunity to squeeze the Jindan. He could only force himself to take a breath, and with the momentum of all out and fighting, he swung his arm and blasted out a seabed quake. The waterfall flew down and hit the ground. Hou Yu didn't make a downward cut, but clenched his fist diagonally to block Lu Qing's thunder roar zen. Bang! The thunder on the ground shocked the whole audience into silence. The remaining influence in Lu Qing's body was completely detonated. His legs were weak, his qi and blood rushed to his throat, and he fell to the ground with tinnitus and dizziness. Opposite him, Hou Yu, who had been hit by a frost force and 2 tremor punches, also had stiff muscles, trembling joints, and rolling qi and blood. He couldn't stand up anymore, and suddenly collapsed. After 3 moves in a row, Hou Yu, who was not good at this, and Lu Qing, who was in a bad condition, fell to the ground at the same time. The referee stood beside them, silently counting the time. Li Liantong, Fan Yanxi, and other audience members were worried at first, and then they came to themselves. With red eyes, they shouted a name in unison, Lu Qing. Lu Qing. Lu Qing. Lu Qing. Lu Qing. In front of the computer screen, Yan Shaoling, Brahman, and others also shouted this name in a low voice, as if they wanted to give him courage and strength to help him stand up. Lu Qing. Lu Qing. Yan Jika, Sun Jian, and others also shouted loudly with the audience, but one was at the side of the ring, and the others were at the seats. Lin Ke subconsciously clenched his fists, and stared at the ring. Lu Qing saw Hou Yu fall to the ground from the corner of his eyes, and tried to adjust the condition of his body while he was retching. He tried to visualize the thundercloud to finish one internal training and stand up first. However, even his mind and thoughts were shaking, so he couldn't visualize at all. Lu Cheng! Lu Cheng! Amidst the orderly shouts, a figure struggled to get up. His legs were trembling, but he stood firmly. The shouts of the whole arena stopped, and there was an indescribable silence, because it was Hou Yu who stood up. Hou Yu's face was pale. He took a deep breath and stepped to Lu Cheng's side. Without him doing anything, the referee raised his right hand and announced the result. Round 4, Hou Yu wins. Hearing this, Hou Yu looked back at his own seat, with snot and tears running down his face. Senior brother Zhou, I won. I didn't let you down. Lin Ke loosened his hands and buried his face deep. Li Liantong, Wu Qian, Fan Yanxi, and other students couldn't hold it anymore, and tears fell down. He walked so hard, but he stopped here. Just a little bit more. Vaguely hearing the judgment, Lu Cheng's heart was suddenly filled with pain and annoyance. It's all my fault. I was too complacent. I didn't take the responsibility of this competition. At this moment, he felt that he was supported by someone, and he smelled a familiar fragrance. Looking sideways, he saw Yanjika's beautiful face. Thinking that he failed to live up to the girl's expectations, that he didn't fulfill his promise, and that his high spirits and confidence turned into bubbles, Lu Cheng was full of guilt and shame, and he didn't dare to face Yanjika. He whispered painfully, I'm sorry. Yanjika looked at the boy who was in extreme pain, and her heart was full of pity. Her eyes were red, and she said softly, you played very well. Just a little bit more and you could have won. I should have played better. Lu Cheng clenched his fists, and wanted to give himself a punch. Otherwise, he couldn't dispel the shame and self-blame in his heart. That little bit could have been fought for. Yanjika knew that the more she talked, the more painful it would be. She didn't want to dwell on this topic, and said firmly, then win it back later. Win it back later? Lu Cheng was stunned, and answered in a promising manner, okay. As soon as he calmed down, he returned to the seats. Seeing the painful Lin Ke, the confused Sun Jian, and the others, he couldn't help but blame himself. He took a breath and said solemnly, I'm sorry. I didn't play well this time. Li Mao immediately answered, no, we were too weak. It's good enough that you fought to this extent. Otherwise, losing this round meant losing everything, and they couldn't count on the substitute match. Yes, we were too weak. We could only count on you too. Lin Hua's eyes were misty. Lin Ke also put down his palms, and said with a painful but firm look in his eyes, I was also wrong. I wasn't good enough. Hearing that his teammates were scrambling to take responsibility, Lu Cheng's eyes blurred, and he almost shed tears. At this time, Geyser, who had been silent, said, do you understand? Lu Cheng lowered his head and nodded slightly, I understand. Don't be complacent in the future. Geyser sighed, then I'll teach you one more thing. Don't be complacent, and don't lose your spirit when you're down. Lose my spirit? Lu Cheng looked up blankly. Geyser nodded and answered, yes, the spirit of chasing, the spirit of striving, and the spirit of fighting. Chapter 221. The spirit of pursuit, the spirit of perseverance, the spirit of struggle. Lu Cheng was shocked and couldn't help but shudder. He kept reciting these three kinds of spirits and climbed out of the swamp of regret and self-blame. Failure was not terrible. What was terrible was not being able to recover after failure. Seeing Lu Cheng's reaction, Geyser smiled with satisfaction. Donglin's squad can only be considered as a small pit on your martial arts path. When you cross this threshold and look back, you will find that it is not a problem at all. You should set your sights higher. The real opponent you need to catch up with, challenge and defeat is in the university martial arts competitions. When Peng Liyun was at professional 8th pin, He beat Zhou Jingquan just like you beat most of the professional ninth pin fighters now. After this incident, he seemed to have acquiesced to open the master-disciple relationship between them and calmly taught Lu Qing. Lu Qing took a deep breath and felt that the next goal was more and more clear. That was to break through the big devil, Peng Liyun, who had been lingering in his ears for the past year. He wanted to catch up with the real genius who was regarded as his role model by his master at the beginning of his martial arts practice. If he couldn't win the championship of the university martial arts competition before Peng Liyun graduated, even if he and Lin Ke were lucky enough to win this honor, it would be full of regret. Gizershur didn't say more. He turned to Sun Jian and said, "What are you waiting for? Go up and finish what you started." Because they lost the last match 2-3, even if Sun Jian beat Hou Yu who was in a bad condition this round, the final score would only be a draw. There would be an extra round of substitutes. Among the substitutes, Donglin's squad still had a strong professional ninth pin fighter, Li Xingnan. Songqing University Martial Arts Club didn't even have an amateur first pin fighter, so there would be no surprises. Therefore, Sun Jian didn't rush into the arena. It didn't matter to let Hou Yu recover a little. After all, it wouldn't change the overall situation. Okay. Sun Jian nodded and walked to the stone steps with mixed feelings. If only we substitutes were stronger. In the arena, Hou Yu had performed the waterfall of the fly fall punch 3 times in a row. Not only did he consume a lot of energy, but his body was also affected by the shock. He couldn't run around the arena. Sun Jian cautiously circled around him for a while and found that his opponent seemed to have difficulty even walking. So he plucked up his courage and approached him with the 24 blizzard strikes. The referee raised his right hand and said in a calm tone, "5th round, Sun Jian wins." Under normal circumstances, the audience would cheer for Sun Jian and cheer for the martial arts club. But now, they were silent and even sobbing, as if they were watching a tragedy unfold. Before the match, they had already been briefed on the rules. They also knew that the substitutes of their own martial arts club were no match for the other party. As expected, the referee continued to announce, "The result of this match is Songqing University Martial Arts Club's victory. The overall result of this match is a tie. Additional round, substitute battle." Gizershur looked at Li Mao and the others and sighed. "Are you going to compete?" "That's right, do you want to compete?" They couldn't win the game and couldn't change the result. Li Mao and Lin Hua were silent for a while. They were at a loss. Why waste physical strength and effort? Yenjika lowered her eyelashes and covered her eyes. She forced a smile and said, "Of course. Coach Shur, didn't you say that we are here for actual combat? How could he not play when there's a competition?" "You're right." Gizershur blushed and laughed dryly. "Go ahead then." This old man had almost forgotten this slogan. "Don't you want to cheer for me?" Yenjika reached out her hand to Lu Qing. Her eyes were red and bright. Lu Qing took a breath and said in a voice that could only be heard by both parties, "Go Coach Yen." With a clap, they high-fived each other. Yenjika turned around and walked down from her seat to the stone steps. She felt sad, pitiful, and regretful. But there was also a firm belief in her heart. We can lose, but we can't admit defeat. Seeing this beautiful girl, who shouldn't exist in the violent arena, walking to the battlefield without hesitation, the audience seemed to be infected. They calmed down and scattered cheers sounded again. Fighting to this extent, we are already good enough. There weren't many miracles in the world. Yenjika's fierce attack at the beginning did startle Li Xingnan. But she was much more experienced and stronger than her opponent. She soon steadied herself and launched a counterattack. She won quickly. Then Li Mao and Lin Hua took turns to challenge her, but they still couldn't break through this wall. The referee took a breath and said loudly, "Substitute battle, Donglin's squad wins." The final result, Donglin's squad wins. The whole arena fell into silence again. A thick sense of sadness reverberated in the martial arts gym. Yenjika bit her lower lip and pulled Lu Qing with misty eyes. Cheng, let's go and say thank you to everyone. Lu Cheng originally had this idea. But after not being able to bear the result, he was afraid to face the enthusiastic students and see their disappointed and sad expressions. At this moment, hearing his girlfriend's suggestion, he took a deep breath and said, "Okay. A man can't be a coward. Since it's my responsibility, I have to face it myself. No matter how disappointed they are, or scolded me, or even throw things at me, I'll bear it. I'll make up for it in the next match." Lu Qing stood up, patted Sun Jian, Li Mao, and others, and led them to the stands. Hand in hand, they bowed together. "Thank you for your support, for your cheers, for your shouts, and for your sadness." Just when Lu Qing was ready to bear everything, a hoarse shout suddenly rang out from the stands. "Next time! Next time!" Lu Qing and others were stunned and didn't react. The spectators in the stands were silent at first, and then they shouted noisily, "Next time! Next time! Next time! Win for us next time!" The voices gradually became uniform, which affected the other stands. All the spectators shouted in unison, "Next time! Next time!" No complaints, no disappointment, only encouragement and expectation. Lu Qing, who had always believed that men don't cry easily, and men don't shed tears when they bled, suddenly had tears in his eyes and a sore nose. Once again, he and his teammates bowed deeply, thanking for their love and support. "It's so good to have you. We'll win next time. Next time. Next time." The shouts of the audience were transmitted to thousands of households through the airwaves, making Yan Shaoling, Brahman, and the other girls burst into tears. Choking with sobs, they followed and shouted, "Next time, next time, next time, next time. Next time." Shu Rui, who had just been out of school for a year, was affected by the atmosphere. She sniffed and was afraid that she would be too embarrassed to cry. At the same time, she was worried about what to do. Songqing University lost. How to interview Lin Ke later. Thinking of this, she really wanted to cry. Next time. Next time. Lu Qing turned his head to look at Yan Zhika with blurred vision. He found that the girl's eyes were filled with mist. Her eyes were obviously red, but she didn't cry. Cry. He held the girl's hand. She took a breath and said with a smile that was uglier than crying, "I don't cry when I'm sad, next time. Next time." Li Liantong, Fan Yanxi, and others had been completely immersed in the atmosphere, crying and shouting at the same time. Laughter can make people reminisce from time to time, while crying is unforgettable. After the game, Lu Qing took a shower, changed his clothes, and walked out of the locker room directly. He was familiar with the way and knew that there would be an interview waiting for him, so the sooner he finished, the better. Shu Rui looked at him in surprise. She laughed and said, "Lu Qing, I thought you would be the last to come out." Lu Qing wanted to make a joke and say, "Last time I won, so I gave the limelight to everyone. Today I lost, so I'll take the blame first." But he was not in the mood. He just replied politely, "I didn't know you would be waiting for an interview." Good boy. Compared to Lin Ke, he was much better. Shu Rui ridiculed and brought the topic back on track. "You don't seem to be in a good mood. Was today's game very important to you?" "Every game is important to me." Lu Qing said concisely, "Failure will definitely make people unhappy." Shu Rui thought for a while and said, "Then I'll be bold and ask, what do you think of this failure? What do you think you lost in? What do you need to improve? We are more or less the same as the Donglin squad. Both of us have a chance to win. This time, it's mainly because I've been going so smoothly and got a little carried away. I always wanted to take down the opponent in one go. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to face Zhou Jingxuan's dance stage explosion head-on." Lu Qing said sincerely, taking up his own responsibility. A man can't shirk. As for the reason that he lost because of the simplified physical invulnerability moves, he would definitely not say that. Since he didn't use it, it was a rare trump card. Shu Rui thought for a while and comforted him. It's normal to be young and frivolous. Knowing how to reflect is a sign of maturity. By the way, Lu Cheng, you will participate in the National University Martial Arts competition in the next half of the year. What's your goal? Well, to enter the national finals. Lu Cheng didn't say that his goal was Peng Liyun and the overall champion, because it would definitely be ridiculed. Although you are strong, you are not at the same level as Peng Liyun. In fact, you are far from him. And his improvement is not slower than yours. Then I wish you success. Shu Rui ended the short interview. She continued to interview Yan Zhika and the others. Then she faced the ultimate challenge, the expressionless Lin Quebec, Lin K. What do you think of your performance in today's game? Shu Rui tried to cut in from the perspective of the martial arts competition. Lin K said indifferently, not good. Why? Shu Rui had the urge to go crazy again. Can't you answer in one breath? Why are you like a voice assistant? You answer one question after another. I didn't expect Zhou Jingquan to make 3 consecutive bursts at the beginning. Lin K's eyes showed that he was in pain. If he had fought a little better and left some influence on Zhou Jingquan, the result would have been different. Shu Rui nodded and asked, the National University Martial Arts competition will be in the next half of the year. What's your plan and expectation? After a few seconds of silence, Lin K answered, practice hard. After that, he walked past Shu Rui to the gate of the stadium. Shu Rui felt inexplicably sad. If Lin K had said, it's a secret, or, I won't tell you, she could feel that he was in a good mood and could even make cold jokes. But now, he must be in pain. Time flew. It had been more than a month since the game in May. Lu Qing stood beside the lush trees and closed his eyes to visualize the thundercloud. He compressed his muscles and wriggled his abdomen to create a slight vibration to strengthen his internal organs. Gradually, he felt that his heart was beating more and more vigorously. Blood gushed out and flowed clearly to every organ in his body. Under his control, his heart slowed down quickly without any difficulty. So did the rest of his organs. This was the sign of martial arts training in the body. This was the sign of the peak of body refining. The next step was to integrate all the forces in his body and comprehend the meaning of withdraw. Lu Qing opened his eyes. His qi was vigorous and fierce. He didn't squeeze the Jin Dan again to improve his supernatural ability because he felt that it would be contradictory to his comprehension of the meaning of withdraw. Many supernatural ability users couldn't reach the Dan stage because their supernatural ability was getting stronger and stronger. He was a martial artist and couldn't confuse his priorities. He would wait until he comprehended the meaning of withdraw, and then ask his master to help him awaken his supernatural ability. Besides, his master said that he had made some progress on the fire sect visualization. He might have a chance to get it next semester. Of course, this was a plan for the future. The most important thing now was, go home. Go back to Shoshan. Go back to Shoshan with Ku. In his mind, he visualized a big sun falling from the sky and crashing into a frozen river. Yin and Yang collided fiercely. Bam! He punched the tree in front of him and then withdrew his hand. He turned around and left without even looking at it. As he left, leaves suddenly fell from the tree that seemed to be motionless. The more they fell, the more yellow they became. It was as if winter had arrived. End of part 1. Chapter 222. Dusk had passed and the train was running fast. Yenjika couldn't bear the tiredness and fell asleep on her boyfriend's shoulder. Lu Cheng's right shoulder didn't move at all. His left hand gently reached out and skillfully grabbed the backpack on the side. Then he unzipped it, took out a jacket, and put it on Yenjika. For men, there was a kind of coldness called, your girlfriend may feel cold. But high-speed trains were always hot in winter and cold in summer. Considering his girlfriend's travel habits, Lu Qing didn't want her to travel for several hours, so he proposed to take a plane home. But Yenjika refused and even calculated the time for him. It took about 50 minutes to get to the airport from the new campus of Songqing University, which was about the same as the train station. At the airport, they had to get the boarding pass and go through the security check, which took about an hour. Even if the plane took off on time, it would take at least 2 hours. Besides, the destination was Gaofun, the provincial capital, and they had to transfer to Shushan by train. All in all, it would take at least 5 hours. But the high-speed train from Songqing to Shushan would only take 6 hours from the new campus, so they didn't have to make so many transfers. Lu Qing chose a train that could run at night to preserve the taste of the food when he went back to school. Of course, it was not as fast as the high-speed train. The scenery outside the window kept passing by. Lu Qing was a little excited and a little melancholy. He was excited because he missed home, his parents, and everything in Shushan. He was melancholy because he couldn't be with Yenjika every day after returning to Shushan. She went to Jiangnan during the winter vacation, which meant she hadn't seen her relatives and friends here for almost a year. She would have to go to all kinds of parties. More importantly, she would have to spend time with her parents, so she couldn't be as free as she was in school. Fortunately, they had agreed to exercise together every morning. While Lu Qing was thinking, the speed of the high-speed train started to slow down, and the announcement of arrival came from the radio. Shushan ahead. Yenjika's long eyelashes trembled, and her eyes opened slowly. Her face was full of confusion, as if she had just woken up. Where are we? We'll be there soon. Lu Qing put his left hand into his trouser pocket and took out a pack of tissue. Yenjika woke up. Ah! She blushed and let her boyfriend wipe the corners of her mouth. She was drooling again. Your t-shirt. She turned her eyes and saw the wet stains on Lu Qing's clothes. She couldn't help but smile, but she was a little proud. Lu was about to tease her when he heard the cheerful ringtone of the girl's cell phone. Empress, Empress. Yenjika shrank her neck when she saw the caller ID. She answered the call. Hello, Mom. I'll be there in a few minutes. Bye. The train, bye. Poor me, no one picked me up. Lu Qing listened quietly and made a self-deprecating remark with a smile, calm. That's right. Poor Qing, I'll pick you up in the future. Yenjika answered with a smile and helped him tidy up his collar. Lu Qing stood up with a smile on his face. With one hand in each hand, he took down the girl's trolley box and big backpack. His effortless and steady manner attracted the attention of the passengers around him. This boy is neither tall nor strong, but he is strong. Carrying 2 bags, dragging the suitcase, and holding Yenjika's hand, Lu Qing went through the door, got off the platform, passed the gate, and arrived at the hall. Yenjika stopped and said with melancholy, "Give me the luggage." After helping her carry her luggage, Lu Qing waved his hand. Holding back his reluctance, he smiled and said, "See you tomorrow." "See you tomorrow." Yenjika pursed her lips and smiled. Although they had agreed to exercise together every morning, Lu Qing felt that Empress Dowager would make some trouble. She dragged the suitcase and walked a few steps. Then she stopped and looked back at Lu Qing. After a few seconds of hesitation, she waved her hand, turned around, and walked quickly out of the hall. Lu Qing sighed and stood there. He planned to wait for a while before going out. He didn't want to meet Empress Dowager. After more than a minute, his cell phone beeped. Yenjika said, "I've met up with Empress Dowager. You should go home soon. Don't worry. The bus here doesn't stop until 9. Lu Qing replied as he walked out of the station with the luggage. Yenjika put on an obedient expression and said, Actually, I wanted to give you a goodbye kiss just now. For the shy Yenjika, it's just a thought, right?" Lu Qing said with a smirk. "Hey, you know me very well." Yenjika replied, humming a little song. After chatting for a while, Yenjika's reply slowed down. Apparently, she was talking to her parents. Lu Qing put the phone in his pocket and sped up to catch the nearest bus. He went straight to the back door with the yin-yang stance and took out his cell phone. It was almost 8 o'clock. He didn't ask his mother to leave him dinner. He had to find something to eat. As for how to find it, he was back in Shushan. He didn't need to worry about being unfamiliar with the place. Lu Qing found Qin Rui's number in his contact list and called him directly to see if his old classmate was free. He wanted to thank him face to face for helping his cousin's boyfriend enter Gushan martial arts school. Secondly, he wanted to ask about his summer job. Hello, Cheng. You're on holiday? You're back? Qin Rui asked happily on the other side of the phone. Lu Qing laughed. Yeah. I just got back to Shushan and didn't leave any food at home. I'm going to eat something outside before going back. Are you free? Let's meet up. Sure. Where do you want to meet? There's a new crayfish restaurant near Peace Bridge. It's pretty good. You can try it. Qin Rui agreed without hesitation, although he had just had dinner at 6:30. After Dai Linfeng and other brothers witnessed their classmate Lu Qing kill a professional ninth pin fighter, his status in the martial arts school had unknowingly risen and he had received the respect he had never enjoyed before. This made him, who had been out of school for a year, deeply understand the fickleness of human nature and how to manage one's own network. Without a doubt, Lu Qing was definitely a classmate worth keeping a good relationship with. Lu Qing smiled and said, "Let's go there next time. Guys like us who come back only once in half a year always want to eat something familiar. How about Old Lu Barbecue? Let's meet at Old Lu Barbecue." Okay. Qin Rui paused and said, "Your cousin is playing in the martial arts school. Do you want her and Ding to go there too?" Ding Yanba had been in the Gushan martial arts school for almost a month. Qin Rui naturally knew that he was not a child of Lu Cheng's relatives, but a relative's child's boyfriend. Fei Fei? She's in Shushan? Lu Qing asked in surprise. When did Qi Yunfei come to Shushan from Ningxue? Aunt doesn't care about her. Qi Yunfei performed well in the middle school entrance exam in June and failed to get into Shushan No. 1 middle school and Ningxue No. 2 middle school. Fortunately, the difference between the scores was not big. Aunt Qi Yan made up her mind and spent a lot of money to send her to Shushan No. 1 middle school. Yeah. She said she'll stay at your house these days. Qin Rui answered with a smile. She's staying at my house? Then I can only sleep on the sofa? Lu Qing didn't expect that he would be the director on the first day he came back. He was annoyed and amused at the same time. Okay. You can ask them to come over. I'll see what that guy looks like. He also wanted to warn Fei Fei to know her limits and not to delay her studies. When Lu Qing arrived at the Old Lu Barbecue restaurant with his luggage, Qi Yunfei and her boyfriend were already waiting there. Qin Rui left from his house and would arrive in a few minutes. Qi Yunfei was dressed up like a popular little girl. She waved her hand and said, Brother Lu Qing, here, here." Lu Qing walked over with a smile and glanced at the boy named Ding Yanba from the corner of his eyes. He found that he was more than 1.8 meters tall, which formed a cute contrast with the petite Qi Yunfei. His appearance was not outstanding, but it could be said that he looked decent without any hostility. Between his eyebrows, there was a vigorous vitality unique to his age. "You're amazing. You came to Shushan without a word." Lu Qing came in front of them and teased them while putting his backpack. Qi Yunfei smiled proudly. "What do you mean by without a word?" "I told my mom that I'll come to your house to play for a week." As for her sister Chen Xiaoxiao, she was still in class. After that, Qi Yunfei pulled Ding Yanba and urged, "Call me Brother Lu Qing." Ding Yanba had no choice but to say shyly and embarrassedly, "Brother Lu Qing." "Sit down." Lu Qing pointed to the chair and asked casually, "You've been in the martial arts club for almost a month, right? How do you feel? Can you adapt?" As soon as he said this, he wanted to laugh. If Yenjika was here, she would probably be trembling. Since when did Qing become so old-fashioned? Sure enough, it was very different to appear as a brother. Ding Yanba answered cautiously, "It's okay. I'm a little tired, but I feel that I've learned a lot. Brother Roy is a serious person, but he is very good to us and does his best." "That's not what you said before." Qi Yunfei interrupted with a smile. "You said that Brother Roy always had a straight face and didn't show any mercy. How long has it been, and you've changed your position?" Ding Yanba scratched his chin and said embarrassedly, "I understand now. Brother Roy is good for us. It's good to be strict." Lu Qing affirmed. Qi Yunfei pouted. "Brother Lu Qing, you don't know how much he has changed during this time. Brother Roy this and Brother Roy that, he's almost like a follower. I'm learning martial arts better." Ding Yanba explained, "You don't know how powerful Brother Roy is. He ranks among the top of the younger generation in Shushan. You know that guy from Mingshui? He's so powerful and good at fighting, but he was knocked down by Brother Roy with a kick and a slap." "Guy? The guy who came to our school and beat people?" Qi Yunfei asked with her eyes wide open. "Yes, that's him. In front of Brother Roy, he's as obedient as a dog." Ding Yanba said with excitement and admiration. "By the way, Brother Roy just passed the ranking event and got the certificate of amateur first pin. Qin Roy passed the amateur ranking event in June?" Lu Qing nodded with relief. At this moment, he found Qin Roy's arrival in advance with his keen senses. He waved his hand and shouted loudly, "Qin Roy, over here." Ding Yanba and Qi Yunfei followed the sound and saw Qin Roy, who was more than 190 centimeters tall, striding over like half of an iron tower. They hurriedly stood up and shouted cautiously and reverently, "Brother Roy." Qin Roy smiled and was about to speak when he suddenly found Lu Cheng's chi was vigorous to the extreme, which naturally formed a fierce and powerful feeling. He sat there quietly, but seemed to be taller than himself. Is this the peak of the body refining stage? He was stunned and smiled with half bitterness and half surprise. "Cheng, I almost couldn't help but call Brother Lu. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.